the thing that he will do, and he's all good. It seems
Before,
like
But I
before you do
just
something,
I just said if he gave us free will
mm-hmm.
to choose evil, right? Choosing
Right.
good doesn't mean anything if you can't choose evil. So the core moral
that makes
belief,
no sense.
how does that not
you
make
don't-
sense?
You don't hold to that principle.
If I give someone a love potion and they choose to love me, what's love has more value? A woman who chooses to love me from her own free will and her own thoughts about me, or if I give her a love potion and she loves
and
me?
see, look, and I'm
Which
gonna
one's
add to
greater?
that. I'm gonna add to that.
Obviously, the one where she chooses freely, but
Exactly,
you don't hold to this.
exactly.
Wait, but you don't hold to this principle. You don't hold it.
Yes, I do.
No,
you don't.
because
I can
the dude
prove
in the
that- hold
comments.
on.
Go ahead,
Hold on,
tell me where I
hold on.
don't. Tell me where I don't.
I can prove you don't hold to this principle. Does God have the ability to do evil?
Does he have no, God, no, he cannot.
Does he have free will?
Yeah, he can do as he pleases. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't hold to that principle. So why did you bring it up?
Wait. How's that contradict what I'm saying at all?
Because you're saying your principle was that if you don't have the ability to choose evil, then there's no good in.
I understand what you're saying. Well, you're missing a core logical premise of the existence of God. The core premise is God is incapable of doing evil.
Precisely.
Right. So if you don't hold that
Then
core
your
premise, then
principle
there's no
doesn't
point. If you don't hold that core premise, then that's like everything I'm
No,
saying.
I successfully showed that your principle doesn't hold.
So you have a problem with humans being free.
I'm saying that if it's entailed that freedom will cause evil, then God's not going to choose that option. That's not my problem.
Okay,
that I
so
have. That's
y'all
just
have a
logical
problem with the
statement.
Bible because apparently it controls you, and now
Listen
you
to
have
me.
a problem with being free.
Listen to me. Why do you keep saying I have a problem? I don't
said
have a
y'all.
problem because it's not my view. You have a problem. I'm
No,
pointing out
you
a problem
do.
on your view.
You read the
No,
Bible and
not
did
me.
not
I'm
understand
not
it
the
at all.
Christian.
Wait,
I'm not the Christian.
So from your point of view, the only way a God could be benevolent is if he never created free will where people are capable of choosing evil. So the fact that God gave us, let me finish.
Okay, my bad.
The fact that God created, I'm trying to steel man your argument or understand it. The fact that God created beings with free will capable of choosing evil proves that he is not all good and all justice.
No, that's not what proves that he's not all good. What
Hello,
proves
friends.
that
Exactly.
he's not all good is that he permits them to do evil. Right. So or rather that evil exists at all. Right.
And before y'all do something bad, do you not have that feeling in your gut that this is not the right thing to do?
I don't know what that has to do with anything.
Again, I still have not heard a single refutation for how allowing free will and allowing people to
Right.
choose good instead of choose evil promotes a greater good. That is the point of evil. That is the point of free will.
If it promotes a greater good, right, then it ought to be done.
Being able to choose promotes a greater. Again, I go back to love potion example, which you conceded it is better. It is better if someone chooses to love you than is a love potion given to them.
Not only that,
Right,
God
but then
gives you a
don't
path
think
to
that
follow.
you don't think that God's love has any moral merit.
Can I
then?
interject?
I do think God's love has moral merit.
But he can't choose evil, right?
No,
But look, if
but
you don't think,
we're not gods. We're not perfect.
well, that's just special pleading.
Well, yeah, you
The
have to
point
deal
is,
with the premise that God is all good. That's what I said already.
No, but look, you're not understanding. The point is, you're saying that evil, you're saying free will, the capacity to do evil is essential in order to have this property, free will, right? Or significantly moral freedom or something like that, right?
Yes.
But you're granting that God doesn't have that property.
He is God. So again, you're missing the complete understanding of basic theology 101 of God. Nothing God can do is we can talk about morals. Do you want to talk about morals? Because that's what this is evolving into.
You're not tracking.
No, I am
think
tracking.
Do you think free will requires the capacity to do evil? Is it
No
an
one said
essential
that.
property? Is it an essential property of free will that one has?
Yeah,
One who
otherwise,
has free will?
if I can't choose evil, then it's not really free, is it? It's like
Yeah.
limited will.
Then it's just going to follow that if God can't choose evil, that he doesn't have.
You're
it.
not understanding a basic theological premise of the understanding of God. It doesn't, as God is the moral authority. This is what I'm saying. It's going down.
Are
a
you
moral path.
equivocating when you say
Let me
God
finish.
has free will?
Let me finish.
Okay.
Yes, let him finish.
I don't understand. You're just not tracking the argument.
I'm 100% tracking the argument. I'm explaining the premise that you're missing.
What's at issue here
When I
is
say-
whether you're equivocating or not when you
Are
say
you gonna
God
stop
has
talking?
free will.
Can I
It's
answer your
confusing about free will. You're
Trey,
making it way
we're
harder
not going to
than
be
what it
able to
is.
move forward unless he
Can I-
answers this question.
I'm trying to answer it, and you won't stop talking.
Okay, so the question on the table is, when you say God has free will, are you equivocating?
No. What I'm saying is,
so then, do you understand what that means then? That
Listen to
means
me.
that in the
This is
same
wild.
sense that
This is
human...
insane.
Listen to me.
Can you be
That
quiet, bro?
means that in the same sense, right,
No.
that human beings have... That's what it means to not be
If
equivocating.
you let me finish my answer, and
All right, you can give your answer, but
you're
you're just going to waste our time. Go ahead, waste everybody's time.
Give me 20 seconds. Okay, 20 seconds. I'm trying to say this for a minute now. The thing you're not understanding, right? You're saying, well, humans have to have free will, so to choose evil. So if God must be able to choose evil if he has free will. And I keep trying to tell you is you're missing a basic premise of the understanding of God and the nature of God. is that God, everything God does by definition is good. That's the basic premise in theology of God. If you don't believe that, then we're arguing on completely different planets.
Okay, none of that was relevant, as I
It's
said.
completely relevant because you're
Okay,
saying
fine.
if
You
God
can say
has
it's
free will, he
relevant.
can
Nobody
choose
cares.
evil, and I'm
All
explaining
right,
why he can't
great.
choose
Thanks.
evil.
You've said it. Now let's get back to the argument. Right. So
Wow.
you're not equivocating when you said God has free will, right?
I just explained why he can't choose evil.
Yeah. Okay.
Do
You
want me
said
to
all
say it
that. You
again?
said all that. Well, I wasn't asking you whether what the
You
explanation.
did. That is what you asked.
Bro, he
No,
answered your
I
question.
didn't.
Move
I
on,
did
bro.
not ask you what is the explanation for why he can't choose evil. I never asked you that. Right. So you answered a question I didn't ask you. I tried to stop you from wasting our time by answering a question which I didn't ask you, but you insisted.
Good. Okay, ask your question then. Ask your question. I
Yeah.
don't understand.
So you understand, right, that what it means to say you're not equivocating when you say humans have free will and God has free will is that you mean they have free will in the same sense, right?
Sure.
Okay.
You know
Now,
what? Then
when
that
you
is why I
say,
clarified what I meant.
great. Now, I asked you before, right, if free will, if it's an essential property of free will, that one has the capacity to choose evil.
Right, for humans.
Right.
For
And
humans,
you,
yes.
no, I didn't say for humans. I said for beings that have free will. Is it an essential property? Right.
But it's fine. You know what? Yes, God does not have free will in the same way that we do because he is not
What do you mean by in the same way? He doesn't have free will. You're just
just
Bro,
said
what do you
equivocating.
mean? What is
Because he's
confusing
not
about that?
capable, he's not capable of choosing. Listen, because God is the moral authority.
God doesn't have free will, right?
Listen, dude, this is what I'm trying to explain. You're not understanding. This evolves to a basic moral argument. Because God is the authority for morals, whatever he chooses is by definition not
Great.
evil.
I don't care. That's not answering
You
the
don't care.
question.
You don't understand. You don't understand what you're
That's fine.
arguing
That's
for.
fine. Okay, so now you're agreeing that God doesn't have free will in the same sense that human beings
Can you mute Jack,
right?
bro?
So you're contradicting what you said before, right?
God cannot choose
It's a
evil.
yes or no
because
question.
God
I'm not
cannot
asking you what the explanation is. It's a yes or no question.
Giovanni, can I take over?
God,
'Cause-
God has. Hold on. Let me finish this thought. God
All
has.
right.
Let me answer. God has free will, right, to do as he pleases.
I'm not
My
asking
point
you that.
My point being is because he is
Not
the
what I'm
moral
asking
authority- Dude, I'm answering you because he
What's
is
the
moral-
question I'm asking you?
Oh, Jack, please.
Can
You
God-
said you're answering me. What's the
you said
question I'm
does-
asking?
does- You said
Because I
does
asked a
God-
yes or no question.
Say it again. Say it again.
Yeah. So the question is, do you agree now that God does not have free will in the same sense as human beings do? And so when you say God has free will, you are equivocating, contradicting what I asked you before.
No, I'm not saying no. God can choose to do as he pleases, but what you're saying is so then God can choose evil. What I'm saying is it is impossible for God to choose evil because he is the moral authority who defines what is evil and what is not.
Okay, so now we're going to have to go through the argument again. So
Dude, look. If you do you want me to say like I don't know what you want me to tell you. I can't make.
yeah,
it
I want
clear.
you to address the argument. So the claim that you've made is that God has free will in the same sense.
I never.
Right. Sorry, you
That is
understand
not-
what an equivocation is?
Look,
I
Jack.
understand. Listen.
Do you understand what an
I don't
equivocation
know
Jack.
where are you going? I don't
Do
understand what
you
want me to say.
understand
Jack,
what an equivocation is?
we are trying to help
Trey,
Trey
can
out
you
with
mute
the
this
truth.
guy?
No, we need to mute you.
I've been using this phrase.
I'm trying to tell Trey the correct way Christianity works.
It's fine. I just don't, do you want me to say that I should have clarified that God can't choose evil?
I
That
want to
just-
know if you
that
understand
is-
what an equivocation is.
I understand what equivocation is. I don't know what you're
So
going.
you
with.
understand that equivocation is using the same term in the same sense, sorry, in two different senses, right? So when you're not equivocating, you're using the same term in the same sense when applied to two different subjects.
Okay, so what is your question?
Okay, so are you trying to get me to say that I misspoke or I didn't clarify free will clearly enough? I mean, that's fine. Fine, that's fine. It doesn't change anything.
Literally.
Again, it really doesn't.
I'm saying that you're contradicting yourself.
The crux of your argument. That's fine. That's fine. Maybe I should have clarified. Well, God doesn't have free will in the same way we do because he can't choose evil because he is the moral authority that
When you
defines what is
say,
good.
and you say in the same way as we do, right? I asked you whether it's an essential property of free will that you can choose evil, and God cannot choose evil. It's going to follow, right, that he cannot have free will. If you say that it's an essential property of free will that one can choose evil, right? That's just a contradiction.
Sure, that's fair. I feel you. I understand.
Right.
I understand what you're saying. But
Okay, so
Now we need to decide: does God have free will or not?
again, and this goes back to God can choose to do what he pleases. But
Yes or no
because
question.
no, you're not understanding. God
or no question.
God is not confined by.
You can insist on not answering the questions
Because
that I ask you.
you're not understanding. How can God, if God can't, if whatever
We're
God
not going to
decides,
move forward until you start
then
answering
leave,
questions.
then leave, dude. I don't
Please.
have to tell you.
All right, he got muted. Thank you. Oh, God.
I'm not
Like-
going to leave. I'm not going to leave unless
Why are
Trey
you
asks me
asking
to.
a question that has nothing to do with what's on the side over here?
So, look, does God have free will, yes or no?
I'm going to say yes, but he chooses to do
I'm not
good.
asking you.
Bro, why does it matter? I'm trying to teach Trey the correct way.
Look, I understand what you're saying. You caught me. You're like, well, you said that you have to be able to choose evil to have free will. You said God can't choose evil. Yes, because God is the moral authority that
I don't
determines
care what
is
the
evil.
explanation is.
So you just want yes or no platitudes and loaded questions and no, like that's. I mean, I understand. Like
How
you're
is the question loaded?
you're a debate bro, and you don't understand any
How
form
is
of
the
logic
question
whatsoever.
loaded? Now you're saying I don't understand logic when you're contradicting yourself?
You're not understand how if God cannot choose evil because everything He does is necessarily good.
Don't
then
care
obviously-
what the
Trey,
explanation
you need to
is.
add mods.
If he cannot choose evil, then what do you think the answer is?
I thought I added you as mod.
Who's mod here?
Oh, I added your alt.
Anyway,
Listen, the point is like
You should
it's very
leave it at a
simple.
1v1 because this other dude's like ankle biting, like really bad.
Yeah, I can
I
tell.
don't understand how like these people are so low IQ. Look, you clearly the way you flushed out the semantics to the expression free will when indexed to human agents, what you meant was the capacity to do
He's
evil.
not going to understand what you're saying.
Look, if what you mean by free will is the capacity to do evil, and then you say God has free will and also doesn't have the
No, I
capacity
understand.
to do evil. Yeah, so what do you mean by free will in the
Yeah,
context
so
or
look,
in respect to
you're going to
God?
have to choose, right? Because you've chosen a bunch of logically incompatible claims, right? Which is that free will, as you understand it, has as an essential feature the capacity to do evil. God has free will. God does not have the capacity to do evil. Those three things are logically incompatible.
No, I understand.
Okay,
and that's why.
good.
And that's why
I'm
that,
glad you
I
understand
already-
that.
I
So
already
now
said
what you
5
have to
minutes
do
ago.
is revise your view,
just-
right, to get rid of the logical
I just said,
incompatibility.
okay. I don't. But here's the thing: if God is the determination of what is good and what is evil, right? How is He not operating on another number of principles other than us? Like that doesn't.
That sounds like you're saying that God doesn't have free will in the same sense that human beings do. Mother
Probably
property.
Probably doesn't. So
Well,
let's
I
take
think-
I think that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
So God doesn't have free will, right?
it's not. You can't just say that.
Right.
Yeah. You'd
Wait, how many-
just be equivocating if you
Wait,
say
yeah,
he
he's
does.
just saying in the initial sense God doesn't have free will because God doesn't have the capacity to do evil. In that sense, God doesn't have free will.
It's interesting when we're talking about
You already
God.
signed off on that, in fact. Are you like disagreeing?
You talking about me or?
Like, yeah, you disagreed with Jack when Gio like signed off that God doesn't have free will in that respect.
I said he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't have the capacity to choose evil. That's fine. So if you want
I'm
to
just like, I
clarify,
don't understand why this
we didn't,
Lico
we
dude,
didn't lay
like,
out our
disagreed.
definitions. Maybe you guys
Or
didn't lay out our
whatever.
definitions.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is this. I'm saying that I think that when we're talking about something that determines good or bad. Well, I'm not Christian, so I have like a different perspective on good and evil. Right? So, well, something may be bad or evil in the human sense, but in reality, we're talking about the bigger picture here. It's
These are
automatic.
just two different views. Like I don't understand
well, we're
why
talking-
why are
we're
we
talking about
talking about two
ultimately-
different views?
But we're talking about ultimately God's will, right? And if
You just have a different view from this guy.
yeah, fair enough. There's no point of arguing his view, right? Just like two different conversations.
So right now we're dealing with his view. So yeah. So look, does God do good things?
Yes, he may.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's
Everything God does is good by definition.
yeah.
That's
So
this one. So if you don't agree with that, then we're kind of not operating on the same.
yeah.
framing.
So you can and God is a good being, right? So you can the question is right. Why would you think that it would be required to do something bad, right, to have a good world, right? You could have a good world with beings who only do good things,
Right.
who only have the choice between good things, right, which are the only choices that God has,
no.
right? And presumably that's the same thing that's going on
God,
in heaven.
God only
Presumably
has
that's,
sorry, go ahead,
is
go
that
ahead.
the same thing that's going on in heaven too? Can you sin in heaven?
No, there's no sin in heaven because there's no desire to sin in heaven.
I see. Do beings in heaven have free will? No, right?
They do have free will, but there's no desire. There's no desire to sin. There's no desire to sin.
Wait, you said, right, that to have free will requires the capacity to do evil. Do beings in heaven
The
have
choice-
do they have the capacity to do evil?
No, because you have to have a desire to make a choice.
Do they have? They don't have the
you have a
capacity to do
desire
evil. Now
to
you're
make a
contradicting
choice.
yourself again.
How am I contradicting myself?
Okay,
Obviously,
I
every
will
action you
lay it
take
out
is based
for
on-
you.
every
I will
action-
lay it out for you.
Every action is based on
You
a
keep
desire.
talking.
Guys,
I asked you whether they have the capacity to do evil in heaven, and you said no.
Because they do not have the underlying
And you,
desire.
I don't know why you keep talking.
Go ahead.
You said that it's part of having free will to have the capacity to do evil, right? You said that's an essential feature of having free will, the capacity to do evil. In fact, you were so insistent on that point that you agreed that God doesn't have free will. So I asked you whether people in heaven have the capacity to do evil. You said, no, they don't have the capacity. So now I'm repeating again what you said multiple times now, that it's an essential feature of free will that you have the capacity to do evil.
Fine. I will modify my definition. How about this? Okay, because if you really want to go down this route, which is so silly, fine. But the essential quality of free will is you have to have the ability to enact your desires. Is that better? Are you happy now? Where are you going to go now? Go somewhere now.
Well, then there's no reason why God had to give people the desires to do evil, right?
Can I jump in?
What do you mean he didn't give us the desires? We're fallen people. This goes back to basic theology, where if we don't agree, then it's going to be tough.
Beings in heaven cannot do evil, right? God cannot do evil, right? Beings in heaven have free will. God has free will. You're agreeing that free will does not require the capacity to do evil. You can have beings, right, that are free, that do not have the capacity to do evil. So you can't explain why evil exists by appealing to the necessity that beings have freedom, because it's perfectly within God's power to create a world, right, in which all the beings that are in it do not have the capacity to do evil and nonetheless are free, right? Heaven is an example of such a place, right? So if you want to explain why evil exists, you're going to have to appeal to something else.
Jack, can I ask you a question? Unless you want to take another lap.
Now go ahead. So
this, not for geometry. So, I hear an echo. I don't know. I guess I'm gonna. So, this would only work based off of compatibilism, right? Wouldn't that if Giovanni?
No.
So it would still be free will, but if based off determinism and the environment, how can you do it based off the environment? Or explain how.
Well, God just only offers people choices between good things, and why they choose one thing or another, right? There is no explanation. That's a brutally contingent fact. There is no explanation for why they choose. So it's libertarian free will, right? In the standard sense, there's a principle of alternative possibilities, right? But the only options available to people are the good ones.
Yo, you mind I get a lick in?
Just real quick, I just started getting in. So what I'm saying is this. I'm saying that how can this not be answered with the compatibilist view? Because if you were to hold that view, well, you have determinism, and your free will is determined.
Sorry, if you're asking, could God have given human beings compatibilist free will, then sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, I guess where are we at with the conversation? Are we talking about in heaven, or are we just talking about could God just create another...
What the discussion is about is whether the existence of evil is logically compatible with an all-powerful, all-good being. Right?
Okay, well, so all good and all-powerful.
No, why did he leave? Jesus.
That's because he didn't have a way to move forward, presumably.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, I shouldn't speak for him because he might have had.
Okay, guys, do you mind if I take a step forward? I'd also like to start off by saying I am Muslim, but we also believe in Jesus. We don't believe that he was killed, but he was raised to heaven. We do believe he will be coming back in the end days.
The problem of evil works for the Muslims too.
You mind I get a lick in?
Yeah, go for it.
Sweet. So, originally, we see Adam and Eve put in the Garden of Eden, right? God gives them the free will to take fruit upon this tree that he tells them not to. He says, do not disobey me and take from this tree. But they still have the option to. And they disobey him and take from the tree. Now we understand this to be considered sin. And the penalty of sin is death.
You're preaching.
And so, we see evil being... This is when evil is then... This is when evil is shown... I don't know. For lack of better words, this is when evil enters humanity. And so now God has given us the option to do evil, but also to do good.
Like preaching.
Now he gives us this choice, right? And this choice in this life will determine where we go for the rest of our life.
Does he not hear?
Either be separate from God or be with God. And so we have the freedom to do evil or to do good within this world, and that will determine our outcome. Now, this is the only, the only time where we see the option to do good and evil is within this lifetime. This will determine where you go. Where you go.
Hold on, stop rambling.
Hold on, because I gotta let you know. If you choose to do evil and be against God, and then you die in that way, then
am I mod here?
How you spend the rest of your life is against
He's
God.
Just rambling right now.
No, I'm trying.
Okay,
I'm
wow,
trying to tell
great,
you.
great story.
I'm
Look,
trying
do you
to tell
take
you
it
that you can
that,
still have
look, do you
free will.
understand? Okay, yeah, stop
No,
rambling,
excuse
please.
me.
Look,
No,
do you,
excuse me.
can you, like,
Excuse me.
okay,
No, no.
look,
Let me finish my point. I don't see why you have to be so disrespectful. I don't see
what do
why
you
you
think
have to
your
be so
point's engaging
disrespectful.
with?
Why are you being so
What do you
disrespectful? Why
think
can't you
your
let me finish my
point's,
point?
I'm not being disrespectful. You're
You
rambling.
kind of
You're
are.
not
You're
engaging.
talking over me. You're trying to
Wait,
cut into my point.
okay, so what do you think
Instead,
you're
okay.
engaging with?
All right,
What
no, I'm
point are
not
you
going to do
engaging with?
that. I'm not going to sit here and have a disrespectful conversation. That's
Okay, I'm not going to let him ramble. Oh, I think he dropped.
All right, let's just do me next.
Yeah, he's dropped.
Okay, so you're saying that the problem of evil is obviously would be contradictory for a god if a god is all good. That's kind of where we're at, right?
Yeah, if we understand good in the standard normative sense, right, where it's like deontic, where you ought not do some action if it's bad, right, gratuitously, right, in a pro toto sense, then given that there are those evils, then it's just impermissible that God, given his
I don't think he's
capacity,
going to understand. I don't think he probably is familiar with the vocabulary you're using.
No, continue. If I have a question,
do you need me to clarify?
No, you could go further.
I'd like clarification. Are you claiming that good is the only attribute or the only major attribute?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
So are you assuming that a god as having good as the ultimate attribute and the only attribute?
I'm not making any assumption, and I'm not sure what absolute or ultimate attribute means.
So what he's saying is that you're
You
attributing.
claim good overrules any other attributes that may be possessed or is the only attribute present.
I don't think I understand this concept of overruling attributes.
So what he's saying is that you're saying that there's a contradictory. It's contradictory to have an all good God if he's doing evil things.
I don't
No,
think that's
no, not a
interpreting what he's
contradiction.
saying. Yeah, nothing he said seemed to be talking about contradictions.
I think that what you were trying to say, Tarek, was bringing other attributes of God that could pretty much overrule, what we think is good. But then we have to talk about what we define as good and what we mean by good. I don't think I hold the same version or definition of normative good. I think that's what you said as that viewpoint.
I'd like monkeyboy to continue.
Well,
on.
the argument is based on the idea that a good being seeks to eliminate or prevent evils wheresoever he can.
Yeah, that's not the narrative that I hold then.
Yeah, that's fine. Then the God you believe in wouldn't be vulnerable to a logical problem of evil, at least not of this type.
So you just don't believe in like an an omnibenevolent being?
No, so it's more or less of like. It's more of like.
Okay, well, that's all I needed to know.
No, it wasn't like. It's like I do, but it's more of like the narrative that's put into play.
Wait,
So it's
he is all good?
Well, what do we mean by good? Like good in the sense of like, can he make a possible world to where like there's no possible sins, and then you could possibly
Good in the moral sense.
Yeah, I think that good in the moral sense.
Oh, so he is all good, and he's all powerful too.
Yes, all good and all powerful.
First, defining the in a
Okay,
moral
so
sense.
he would you would
I'm
take
sorry.
it that if he's all good, he seeks to extinguish these like gratuitous like events, right? Like the
No,
Holocaust.
No, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't think that's the narrative.
Wait, do you take it the Holocaust is a bad thing?
Yes.
So if in the powers of an agent, right, some moral agent, if stopping the Holocaust would be good and they have the capacity to do it, then they're logically obliged to do it, correct?
I think that the narrative is not to create such an existence or scenario where everything is going to be all,
Well, that was a yes or no.
No, it's not really yes or no.
No, the question was a yes or no question.
No, it's like, what's your name? Yes or no?
Wait, what do you mean? The question was binary.
Yeah,
The question you described was an open question.
What's your name? Yes or no?
That's not a binary question.
Not everything's a yes or no question.
Did I say it? I don't think you're tracking.
Look, Roddy, I know what you mean, but let
If I
monkeyboy
ask
repeat
you,
the question.
is the coin that is the side of the coin you landed on? Is it a yes or no that it's heads? That's a yes or no question. You asked an open question, an open-ended question. Do you remember what my question even was? Because it was binary.
So you're saying
Okay, don't make claims about me not saying that it's like a yes or no question, and then say it's analogous to a not binary question, and then not know what the question was.
More where it was going to go. Like you're going to point out a
But the
contradiction.
question was a yes or no question. and you said it wasn't.
Well, it was a yes or no that I was going to explain, but then you're going to cut me off and be like, well,
Wait,
no.
okay, look, you can provide an explanation later, right? Whether or not you want to like supplement some explanatory like thing that you think is like saving your position or something. The point is the question was still binary.
Okay, so as long as I have an explanation, then there wouldn't be an issue.
Okay, so do you need me to repeat the question?
Repeat the question.
Okay, you take it that someone who has the capacity to stop the Holocaust is like logically obliged to do it if they're all good, correct? If Superman saw, look, if Superman's all powerful, right? He can take like the power of a collapsing star, and you saw a dude enter a kindergarten, a school pewer, and he starts pewing, and he moves faster than the speed of light. He can stop every bullet, and he sits on the sideline and just watches because he's lazy. Do you take it that he's like morally obligated and he's doing like an immoral action by not?
I get what you're saying, because it's almost like, well, does that mean he's all good, or is it like the capacity to have all good? That's what I'm trying to like figure out right now. Because it's like, yeah, I guess
you take in that scenario, Superman's like logically obliged if he's all good to act in that scenario, right?
Maybe the capacity of all good, but yeah, I guess if he's all good, like, I think he would have to be obliged to do that. No.
Okay, so if you take it that you believe in an entity that's all powerful and all good, do you take it that the Holocaust was like gratuitous? Like it ought not be done?
I guess I would have to say that unless if I were to say if we could even say that.
Okay, so if it's impermittable and there's an agent who has the capacity to impermit it and had not did their duty, you would say that agent is immoral.
Hello, did it pause? Okay. I believe we're focusing on the micro instead of the macro within those certain questions. Going back to the essence of
I'm not sure what you're talking about. What is the macro and micro?
And the essence of
we're raising a logical critique. So, like, what are you talking about?
I was just saying with that example itself, I was trying to go back to the essence of good to begin with.
How's it macro if it logically falsifies the entity in question? Wait, what are you considering macro? Because if the critique is successful, you understand it falsifies that entity. So it's not micro if it eliminates the existence of the being, right? It's macro.
I'm saying within the essence of that question, that's why I said, let's get back to the essence of good. Let's define what good is. I believe me and Lacrati, even though we have similar faiths, our theology differs a bit. So that's why I was trying to ask you if you could clarify on the attributes. What do you mean by good and things such as that? I'll ask you a question. Do you believe a being that is, as you said, omnibenevolent or all good or all knowing or all whatever, just power higher than all of us, is it required to just commit good, or can it also have evil exist?
If it's stipulated the entity is omnibenevolent and he's all powerful.
You said only. I don't take it. Is that what you're claiming? Only benevolent.
I never said the word only.
You literally just said only benevolent.
You said omni.
Okay, I thought you said only.
All right, I'm back. My bad.
Okay.
Fuck, hold up.
Have Lacrati heard what I was saying?
I think he stepped away for a second. So are you making the claim that God in any capacity can only do good and cannot do evil? Is that what the essence of this whole debate is with this?
Well, that's stipulated from your view. If you don't make that commitment and the critique doesn't go through, if you take it God is omnibenevolent, then that's just stipulated under your view. He has the property of only doing the good.
Okay, so that's why I was asking you earlier, what do you mean by attributes and things like that? From the Islamic paradigm,
God's all good?
No, from the Islamic paradigm, God is over everything, and evil exists because God allows it to exist.
Did you hear my question?
Go back to the question.
Do you take it God's all good?
No, we do not. We do not say that as Muslims.
Okay, so you don't believe that Allah only does the good?
No, because the evil that exists only exists because Allah is allowing it, and He created everything.
Well, if you believe that Allah doesn't do all good, then I mean, it's fine.
Yeah,
I would
because
say the
there's other
capacity for good.
attributes such as all just, all wise, and things like that that interact with all of the attributes Allah has that we are aware of that He has told us. So therefore, there are things that exist from our point of view and points in time. Evil exists for its
The
reason.
problem of evil is an argument against those who believe in an entity that's all good. If you're just denying that's like an attribute of your entity, then you're not even in like the space of people we're intending to raise the argument against.
We're saying that. That's what I was saying. Are you saying all good is the only attribute? That's why I said there are multiple other attributes.
What are you? Only attribute of what?
Are you saying all good means that this being has to do only good always?
Yes, the entity seeks to maximize the good.
We're saying
And
if
therefore,
the
can it not utilize evil in the long run?
If you believe
for
there's an
ultimate
entity
good?
that's all good and all powerful, that's what the problem of evil is arguing against. If you're saying the God you believe in, Allah, is not all good, then you're not even like someone we would engage the argument against, right? We wouldn't run the argument against you.
All good
The
is one
argument
of
has-
the attributes. One. That's one of the attributes. All good is one
that's
of the
fine. If it's one of the attributes, then that's fine. Then
Wrong
the
with
argument
this guy.
applies to you.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Monkey said it
Jesus
doesn't.
Christ.
You said originally you said it wasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, because there are
deny that.
other ones that exist that would interact with that to put the
Okay,
all
that's
good.
fine, but that doesn't take away from God being all
Oh my
good. If
God.
God is all good, then the argument applies to you.
Yeah, I agree with you. Monkey said that it didn't apply to me. Therefore, we were saying that the ultimate end.
You said
results
Allah's not
will
all
be-
good.
Yeah, I did, because there are other attributes. Are you saying that He's restrained to only this one attribute?
No, but we're saying
What's wrong
that
with
if
this
God,
guy? All
Yeah.
good doesn't mean the only property of Allah is good.
yeah,
Well, I told you what I meant by all good like 4 times. The entity seeks to maximize the good. They
Okay,
only
I have,
do
a,
good
I have a
actions.
question for you. Can you not utilize things that would be viewed as bad or evil for the ultimate good for majority forever?
Maybe Jack should talk to this guy. This guy's not very competent.
is Jack there?
Jack's better at talking with like locales. Get frustrated, so.
I don't think Jack's there.
Here.
Oh yeah. If you want to talk to this guy, you can.
Well, I need a few minutes. So.
Do you know how
I mean, I can try and continue to engage with him. I just don't understand how he's like not getting it.
Yeah, that was really weird. We're confused because Tariq, you said that God, Allah is not all good. I think he's confused. I think he meant by, I think he what he thinks all good means is that he's only good, and that's the only thing he can do. But that's not what we're saying.
Okay, I thought that's
I
what
don't
you
even know
were
what that
restraining it
means.
to.
What does it mean to say there's some X that has the predicate only of good? That's not even like an entity at that point.
He's talking about from like an outcome perspective. So if like the Holocaust, quote unquote, were to happen,
Do you take it that Allah is omnibenevolent?
I think he has the capacity for all.
We
good.
don't have the word omnibenevolent in Arabic that we use for that.
Do you take it Allah does evil?
I think
Yes.
Allah allows evil. Yeah.
That's not what I asked.
Look, what we're understanding omnibenevolent to mean is a being, right, who always seeks to eliminate or prevent the goods that he can, right? That's right, prevent the evils that he can.
Right.
So a good person is a person who seeks to eliminate or prevent evils where he can. So a perfectly good one is one who always does so.
Can I ask
Can
you
you repeat
this?
that for a second? The beginning of that?
Yeah, a good person is a person.
That right there. We're making the analogy from us and what we understand as good to something that we can't fully encompass within our minds. So therefore, why would we expect something to be done
What are you talking
in a
about?
good way?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Would we also add that all is being just good? Can
Look.
we argue that?
Tariq, or whatever your name is, do you take it that Allah does no evil? He only does the good actions?
We acknowledge that Allah does evil because Allah is the creator of everything. If it exists, it is because He has allowed it to exist and
Oh,
created
so
it.
Allah so you recognize Allah has done evil.
Yes.
Okay, so then I guess the argument's not for you.
Yes, but this solves the issue in totality because of
Yeah,
the
it does,
unjust
but
and
you
all
worship
wisdom.
an evil
It doesn't
God.
solve the issue. Because you don't even have the problem in the first place.
Exactly.
It's a problem, right? If you don't have the problem, the critique's not going to work on someone who doesn't have the commitments that the entity's all good and all powerful, right? You already said you recognize he's not all good. This is for people who take it that's analytically true of the entity that he's all good, powerful, such that those two facts are incompatible with our environmental facts and historical facts of gratuitous evils. Right? You're already saying that he's not all good. Okay, so then it's not a problem for you.
Is being just good?
Just isn't always good from our perspective.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, well, we would say Allah is all just.
Not sure what you mean by just.
So like, just in the sense of like,
If someone murders a family, would it be better to allow that person to go scot-free, or should justice be served in some way? That may
I'm not
not
sure
be a
what you
good
mean by
punishment for
just,
that
though.
so
person.
like a consequence to like an action. So like the right objective, a consequence to like an action. So it's like, well, if we say Allah is all good and he's all just, it's
Do you
like,
mean
well,
a punishment?
no, it could be a reward. It's just an outcome. So it's like, for instance, like if Allah is all good, is him being all just a good thing? Is that what we mean by good? I think what you mean by
all
good is
just.
that. You said what?
I don't know what you mean by just now.
So what I'm saying is that just is just consequence for an action, like the right consequence for an
but
action.
all actions bring about consequences.
Yeah, so it'll be like the right consequence for like a certain action.
So, wait, now I don't know what that means.
I don't know how to explain it in another way. I'm trying to think.
There's this normativity about consequences.
So what I'm trying to
What
say...
is a right and wrong consequent? I don't think I
In order
understand
to talk
that.
about right and wrong, what is good and evil, what is allowed, not allowed, moral and immoral, first it would have to go all the way back to how do we define those, and it comes down to subjective versus objective morals.
Look, if there's some action, like the gravity applied to the force of an apple hanging from a tree, that then consequentially the apple falls from the tree, I don't understand how you would actually like predicate the action of either good or bad. I'm not sure what it means to say the apple falling from the tree was a good or bad consequence, because I'm not understanding what you mean by, is this a thing of agents?
I see what you're saying.
Is this merely like some normative aspect of agency deliberation?
Yeah, I guess you could go down that route.
Okay.
Because like everything would kind of be like...
So what do you mean by...
Like, would that be considered good?
Do you mean like that? Because then that just seems like that has no difference from what we were initially talking about. Because now it just seems like you're talking about actions that ought and ought not be done. And that's just like
so what I'm
the same
saying
thing
is
as morality.
like, what I'm saying is like, is that a good thing? Like if an action were to happen to where it kind of will seem bad in terms of like maybe, babies unaliving or whatnot, right? It's like, well, yeah, that does seem like it's a bad thing, but would that be like a normative thing?
Wait, you already said it would be normative.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I'm saying. Is like, would that be considered like good, more or less, or just, or would that be just? Is that something on its own? I'm like asking you the question.
What would be good?
So what I'm saying is that just because it's just, right, or normative, would that be considered good if it's through like the will of like Allah? Like, can that be taken as good?
I don't know. You're asking me.
I'm not sure if he's asking you or me.
So I'm kind of asking monkeyboy, but it's weird because it's like, well, I guess we have to like figure out what we mean by good, because I'm talking about the initial outcome, but you're saying like within, you said what?
You ought to.
So that's what you define as good.
What?
Is that what you define as good?
Yeah, I literally just said that.
Do you believe subjective morality or objective morality? Which one do you believe?
I think objective morality is unintelligible.
So you're holding a position of like morality.
So your whole premise falls flat if you believe in subjective morality, because anything you view as good, anyone else can view as good.
Yeah. So how would
what an internal critique is?
How would it be bad if like the Holocaust happened?
According to subjective morality, the Holocaust.
You understand when you say how would
right?
it be bad? You understand the answer to either a realist or like subjectivist is going to be the same, because that's like either that can either be interpreted as an applied ethical or normative ethical.
Yeah, but would it be
question.
objective? It wouldn't be objective, no.
That's metaethics. Whether or not it's good or bad it has nothing to do with
Well,
whether it's
I'm asking,
objective.
like, is it like objective? Like, is your opinion over anyone else's
You
opinion?
just, oh my god, this guy is like mentally ill or something.
Dude, it's so
you just
funny.
asked
No,
me,
let's
is
say this.
subjective, is some, look, you asked, is some action that I consider to be subjectively immoral, objectively immoral? That's what you asked me.
Yeah, no, I'm just pointing out the fact that it's subjective.
Are you like, okay, yeah.
No,
So
what I think is
the,
funny is that
wow,
just
you
based
definitely
off.
like illuminated to me that I was like unaware, even though I'm the one who communicated to you. I'm
No, I was just pointing out
subjectivist.
the fact that it's like hilarious, the whole deposition.
Wait, you're a more realist?
No, I just think it's funny that you hold a position talking about whether or not something's right or wrong.
Most ethicists are anti-realists. Most theists, actually, in academic philosophy, are also anti-realists. And in fact, the meta-ethics don't actually engage with the critique. This critique doesn't actually matter on whether morality is objective or subjective. So you're confused. Whether or not you believe it's objectively or subjectively wrong, the critique isn't a matter of the nature of moral language. So that's your confusion. And in fact, you saying that it's funny, I don't even know what's
No, I
funny,
just
because
think like
you understand most
honestly,
people who believe in
no,
God
honestly,
don't believe in objective morality.
So what I'm saying is like you as an individual, I find funny.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
Like you're actually just
that
made
does
up
so
of
much for the
whatever you're
conversation.
made up of is just hilarious.
I mean,
That's all I'm saying. So
if you're
we
just not going to
continue.
engage substantively, I could
No,
drop
I'm
you.
just pointing out the fact that like
Okay, well,
just
let's
the way you
not
carry
do
yourself and
like
everything
cringe
is
rhetoric
hilarious.
meta, talking about like I'm funny. What's funny is the fact you're not tracking the critique.
No,
That's
what's funny is you.
Mm-hmm. I'll just drop him. That's fine.
Oh damn! I talked to him last night. I wanted to see if.
I'm assuming he was not very bright last night either.
Well, I gave him a critique, and I think he said he'd just get back with me. It was also late. I think he was pretty tired too. It was like 4 a.m.
And also, we very clearly said he said that was funny. When I said I'm a subjectivist, he was making it clear initially that it was funny the fact I'm running this argument and being a subjectivist. It's not believing morality like exists, and then I like make it clear like some facts, and then he changes it to me being funny, which is not clear how that has any like that's irrelevant.
I'm actually interested as how did you come to the subjective morality conclusion?
Because I don't think objective morality is intelligible.
No. Do you have any?
If you're asking me how I'm a subjectivist as opposed to an air theorist, or as opposed, oh, you're asking just for material and ethics to read?
Yeah, like what have you read that has led you to this conclusion?
Well, I'm a cognitivist about moral expressions. I do take it that there are certain principles that can be recognized to guide my preferences, such that I believe there's a correct morality, and that thus I'm not an air theorist. So and I don't take it mind independent or stance independent or external reasons is an intelligible concept. So that's how I got to like a subjectivist.
Any philosophers that you read to bring you to this, or is this just all internal intuition?
Well, yeah, I don't even believe in intuitions, but yeah, I've read like philosophy.
Just Western or Eastern also?
I'm not even sure. I would assume it's all Western. I have no idea about whether or not the material I actually read comes from like a person. Like I don't like study the historical background of the writing. So most times I'm not even aware. Sure how that matters though.
Because
I mean, I generally don't read like continental philosophy.
Yeah, a lot of times when I talk to people and they tell me that they've read a philosophy and they're really into it, a lot of times it just goes back to the Greeks and Romans and the Western world, but not many people read upon Eastern philosophers.
Yeah, I mean, if the Eastern philosophers contribute like meaningfully to the pedagogy, then I think it'd be worth like, reading. But a lot of times for like some of the contemporary issues like philosophy of religion regarding God's existence or metaphysics and stuff like that, like Eastern philosophy I don't think really contributes much sometimes, but it might just depend upon who you read.
Well, it depends on the substance that it's adding to, right? Are we comparing it to, you saying what majority of the Western stuff, right? Is it in line with that, and are we going by that being the end all be all? That kind of thing.
Not necessarily. It just depends on like what's being written. Because I know a lot of times, especially in continental philosophy, a lot of that material I think is kind of like gibberish. And I don't mean that in the way where like, oh, I don't understand it. I think sometimes like some philosophers just, it's not really intelligible as to what they're saying. But,
I understand what you mean. There's a famous Islamic philosopher named Ibn Arabi, and he's considered to be like that.
Yeah. It's just that I think Western philosophy and like analytic philosophy might have less instances of the gibberation, but it's not to say that like in those sorts of disciplines we have gibberish generators in those ones. I mean, we definitely do. But I think fewer.
What do you think of during the Enlightenment period of majority of thinkers then being fans of Eastern philosophy, especially things such as Neo-Confucianism and things like that?
I think we should just get back to like the problem of evil.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I like to talk about philosophy and stuff. Yeah, the subjective morality and objective morality thing.
You're a more realist?
So, do you believe that your understanding of definition of good can be anything other than what you see?
No idea what you're asking me, but that doesn't answer my question. Are you a more realist?
I'll be completely honest with you. I'm way on the theological scale.
But you don't you don't need moral realism to have a logical problem of evil.
The metaethics don't matter, or at least
well, we need to know what is
objectivism.
evil and what is good.
You can it's just that if we understand the good as what God is aiming at, and evil is what
coming to that conclusion from,
and what evil is what he considers undesirable. If you say evil exists and God is all powerful, there's still going to be a contradiction.
No, I'm just saying, how are we coming to that conclusion of what good and evil is?
The problem of evil is an internal critique, so it would just be based off the Christian.
When you say what good and evil is, that doesn't even seem like a metaethical question. Like that doesn't deal with the problem of evil. We're just understanding good as like that which you ought to.
Well, first we need to understand what they are and define them if they even exist to begin with.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I think you're confused, to be honest. What are you asking for a definition for?
I'm saying, how can we define something as being good or bad if we don't know what those are? How do we know what those are?
Yeah, by good, all we mean by good here is that which you ought to. Is that clear?
How do we come to that conclusion that is what good is, what you ought to do?
That's what I'm defining good.
That seems much like a virtue ethics.
Is that an epistemic inquiry? It's not. That's not virtue ethics.
That is, you do what you ought to do, even if it's not what you want to do.
Deontology, not virtue ethics. That's not virtue ethics. That's deontology. Virtue ethics means good is certain character qualities that the characteristic modifies, or modified index to an agent is that which like conduces to the good. What material on like virtue ethics? What? Very clearly, we used ought language. Virtue ethics doesn't use like deontological language.
I would take that back to Western versus Eastern philosophy and those texts if you study them, and how the Eastern
that's not virtue ethics.
To understand what virtue ethics were.
Okay, what philosophers on virtue ethics have you read?
I've read a few books on Neo-Confucianism. I really enjoyed that one. And also the
philosopher
French
do you think is a virtue ethic?
His name is slipping my mind. What's his name? Starts with like a V.
Okay.
He had a famous book.
You understand you're just wrong. Virtue ethics don't deal with oughts.
Okay, maybe from whatever way that you're explaining
what you ought to isn't virtue ethics.
From what you're explaining, I'll admit that the way you're explaining it and how you define this is unfamiliar with me.
Okay, let's just look. I think you're just honestly spitting gibberish. Let's just keep it linear. Okay, we're understanding good as that which you ought do. You said you believe there's an entity that's all good and all powerful.
Yes, but how do we know that good is what ought to be done?
And that's how we're defining it.
So we can't define it any other way.
I don't know what you're asking. You can define any word however the hell you like. Of course you can.
You're a subjective moralist. You said that yourself, so therefore my definition of good
Yeah,
does not have
what
to
does
be
my
lined up
metaethics
with
have to do
yours.
with anything?
It does not have to line up with what you view as good.
What do you wait, you know that's the same thing for an objectivist. Objectivism isn't the view that there's like stance-independent semantics. We're talking about how we're like semantically fleshing out the expression good. Why do you keep bringing up metaethics where metaethics is not being invoked?
Because the
It's
way I've
talking
been
about
taught to understand
subjectivism or
objective or
objectivism.
subjective is one is devolved from the human cognition, the other one is given to humans from an outside source other than our own cognition. That's how it's been defined to me.
What is, oh my god, what does metaethics have to do with this conversation?
I just told
Okay,
you.
it doesn't have anything to do with this conversation. Let's just get back. So we're understanding the good is that which you ought to. You believe there's an entity that's all good and all powerful. Okay, so do you take it that there's gratuitous evils? Or evil, like, you take it that there are things that ought not occur in the world?
Not that I understand.
Oh, so you don't hold the belief there are... Okay, so this is the best possible world. Or are you just agnostic on whether this is the best, like, possible world?
The only way I can explain this is going back to the Quran itself and the Hadith where it says...
I'm not asking you for an explanation of anything.
Well, no, you're saying the best possible world. I wouldn't say this is the best possible world.
Oh, okay, so... Wait, but you just said... Oh my god. Did you not say earlier that there are no evils? I asked you if there's gratuitous evils or there are things in the world that ought not occur. You said no.
I didn't say no. I said not that I understand.
Okay, so let's just clarify. Do you take it there are things in the world that ought not occur?
So are you asking me directly for...
Yeah, is there things in the world that you take it that ought not occur?
So I'm just asking for like an example. If I was to see something in front of me, I would say, man, that shouldn't happen. Are you asking something like that?
I don't... Yeah, look, do you take it there are things in the world that had not occurred in the world?
No, I guess. I'm not sure how to answer this question.
Okay, so you don't take it there are things in the world that shouldn't have happened?
Then yeah, from my limited
So you think
understanding,
everything in the world should have happened? Okay, so the like thousands of kids who unalived from leukemia, the Holocaust, the number of women that were raped, that all should have happened under your view, unless you want to walk that back. But that's just an entailment if everything in the world that had occurred should not have not happened, right? There is nothing in the world that shouldn't have happened.
I agree with you. That's why I said earlier about the micro and
Okay,
macro.
so you think the Holocaust should have happened?
No, I'm not saying that I think it should have happened. I'm saying that things happen.
Wait, but we're understanding normative axiology in a binary sense, right? It's like bivalent. So either things should have happened or should have not happened. Are you just saying you're agnostic to whether that state of affairs should have happened or not?
No,
like you don't know if it should happen or not?
I'm saying me as a human being saying something should have happened as in specific cases of things like that, right? I'm saying I'm unsure of that, but what I'm sure of is that from the theological view I have is that
I'm not
God
asking
has made everything happen.
Sure or not. Okay,
So,
that's not what I asked. Whether or not God like made these things happen. And I didn't ask about your certainty. I'm asking you, are you of the belief that the Holocaust had not have happened or should not have happened?
that's what I was asking you. Are you going to use certain examples like that, or are we going about?
I just gave you an example, the Holocaust. I'm not sure what's unclear. Do you take it the Holocaust should have happened or should have not happened? Or are you agnostic?
I don't like answering these things on public things like this, but I'll use another example that'll give you a clear answer.
I don't care. Just answer the question,
I'll
please.
give you one that will answer your question without having to use
just give an answer to the question.
Right? Okay.
Okay. So what's the answer?
Okay. So here's another something that's
no,
that's
we're not.
happened.
Don't derail. Don't try and just answer the question.
I'm not derailing. You're asking a question that involves
so then, if you're not derailing, so you're not dodging. Wait, let's just clarify.
That question without
okay. Do I need to mute you? Okay, I'm gonna mute you real quick. Are you dodging the question or are you answering the question? Okay, let's not dodge the question. So, should it have happened? Should it not have happened? Or are you agnostic?
Can I get another question that has to do with the same thing, but a different
Answer
example?
the question.
just saying he doesn't want to use that example.
And we're not going to continue speaking about it. Just answer if it should or shouldn't have happened.
So if I'm allowed to ask this, can I give an example that just seems the similar same, but will answer your question for you without me having to answer to that question because it's a very sensitive topic?
Oh my God.
Go ahead.
Okay. And this is coming from me. I'm African American myself, right? Do I think that my ancestors should have been enslaved for whatever reason that I don't understand that happened? Yes.
I don't understand how this is like any worse of anything. I thought you changed it because it's too sensitive, and then you bring it back to something that's equally as bad. Like
Because
what?
I'm African American myself.
So am I.
I've done my DNA test. I can trace my ancestors back to slavery.
What? Okay. What? Okay. Look, I don't understand what the point of the swap up
Your
was,
political
but yeah.
correctness.
Do you take it? Okay. Let's just get clear. Do you think the Holocaust should or shouldn't have happened?
Well, you could just make it. Do you think that that American slavery should have occurred or something like that? That's fine.
I don't understand what changing it has to do with whether or not the gratuitous evil should or should not happen. It's not like I'm describing grotesque. Like everyone's aware of the Holocaust. It's not like whenever you like invoke the word Holocaust, people just have like seizures, right? And I personally am not of the belief that the American Holocaust is any less gratuitous either. I think they're equally bad, if not like, look, whatever. If you just want to swap to slavery for literally no reason, that's fine. Do you take it that slavery should have happened?
Yeah, I already gave that example and said that about my ancestors. Yes.
It should have happened.
From however it happened, it's in the past. There's no change in the past.
I didn't ask you if the past could be changed.
You said should. That's a past tense, right?
Yeah, should the action had have occurred?
Look, think of it this way.
Wait, was he dropped or did he leave?
I kicked him. That was like ridiculous. Like he's talking about like he thought he meant like past tense when you said the word should, as if
Look,
like
I know the guy is like not very bright. I want to bring him back though, because maybe it could. What was his name? I don't even remember.
he's not in the
He left. Yeah.
whatever. We got Rasul. You can run the problem of evil on him. He seems to think there's no issue.
I did. Well, I was trying to explain to him the other day, but somehow the live ended or something.
Rasul. Rasul is even there. Or Rasul. Oi, bub. He just went off.
Sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool. Yeah, me and Jack were talking the other day, but we got cut off. But yeah, if you guys want to run the problem of evil, see if I can overcome it.
You gotta echo.
Okay. Can I got? Can you give me like 5 minutes? I'm gonna drop off. I just gotta find a better place.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Bye.
I guess he'll be back. I'll invite this guy back up. He probably isn't gonna join though.
Is this any better?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's get into the problem of evil because I honestly don't think there's an issue with the problem of evil.
God is an all-powerful being, right?
What's that?
God is an all-powerful being, so presumably, let me actually put in my headphones. Sorry, is this working?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
can
God
hear
is an all-powerful being. He can do whatever is logically possible. A good being is one who is opposed to evil. He seeks to eliminate or prevent evils wherever he can. And since God has no limitations on his power, he can eliminate all evils or prevent all evils. That's the basic problem.
Yeah, I understand the basic problem, but I think the problem is that what you guys think God's desire is, like, I think you guys think that God desires to eliminate evil. where God's desire is for people to freely choose to do good. So if he wanted to just eliminate evil, he would just like take away free will and nobody
I don't
would
understand
be
what
able to
prevents
choose.
him from making a world where we all freely choose good.
Yeah, because I hold to free will, where it would be just it wouldn't make
God
sense.
God
hold
has
on,
free will,
Let
right?
me respond. Yeah, if we have free will, then it wouldn't be up to God whether we chose
Wait,
chose
God
good or
has
not.
free will, right?
He does, yes.
He can't do evil, right?
That's just that question doesn't make any sense.
Why doesn't it make sense?
So can God go against his nature?
Can God do evil?
Can
I'm just
God go against his
asking.
nature?
I'm just asking, right? Does God have free
God's
will
nature-
Another
in
one.
the same? Does God have free will in the same sense that human beings do?
He has free will, yes.
Okay, so God can't do evil, so therefore it follows, right? That
No,
free
but you don't understand why God can't do evil.
doesn't matter.
It
Doesn't
does matter, though.
No, because what's at issue is that it's not the case that it's an essential property of having free will. Sorry, it's not. It's not an essential property of having free will that you have the capacity to do evil. Is there free will in heaven?
Sure, there is. Yes.
Can you sin in heaven?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so you don't think that heaven is a place that you get to where evil will cease to occur?
No, we see this. Satan. He rebelled against God, and he was in the presence of God. So yeah, you're able to go against God, even when
Right,
you're
so-
in His presence.
Okay, so after redemption and all this stuff, right? They're just going to be people are going to continue to sin in heaven.
No, people pass the test, but they would be able to. They just don't do it because they have passed the trial that they needed to in order to be able to exist in this
Yeah,
place.
but what I'm asking is, right? In virtue of what would they not sin again?
It's their will. They were able to overcome their natural nature.
But look, it's some property
they
about
have, like,
them, right? Some property about them, right? That makes it impossible for them to sin.
But again, I said it doesn't make it impossible. They have the possibility to. They just choose not to.
The point is, look. That means that in some possible worlds they do sin in heaven. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know what you're asking. I responded. I don't know what's hard for you to understand. They have the possibility. They just don't. They just choose not to.
So when you're saying that it's possible, you're saying that there's a possible world in which they do sin, right?
Yeah, we see that play out, right? They were in heaven. There were people that
No, I'm
lived
talking
with
about
God.
after. I'm talking about after.
But there's
the
no difference
redemption.
between before or after. It's still the same. They're still in the presence of God.
Right. So then I don't understand what you're saying is explaining why they don't do it.
The free
Right.
will part of it, that's the part. Free will, the individual chooses.
Look, why is it that you wouldn't expect that sin would continue after the redemption? Maybe that's a way to put the question.
Yes, because they came to this earth, they went through the test, they were able to see, experience everything, and they
I don't think you're
chose.
understanding. You're
Look,
saying the reason.
Is it some property that they have, right? Some property of them that generates that there's no expectation they would sin again?
Okay, I don't understand what you're asking. Some property. I'm saying the reason that they don't.
Like, for
sin,
instance, you might think that a being that doesn't have any evil desires is not going to sin. You might think that.
Oh no! It all comes down to the individual and the desires that he chooses. But you're actually like
What are you
you're
talking
kind of
about? Look.
baking in. Hold on, monkey.
He's
You're
asking-
not even adding anything to the conversation, bro. Like,
I didn't get to say anything, so I don't know why you would assume that.
Hold on, because I want to.
He's just trying to get clear
right?
what explains why someone chooses to do evil.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think that there's this. I don't think that these desires are baked in by anything else but the individual choosing them. There's no explanation why the desires
Wait.
are there, except from the individual having the desire to have those desires.
I don't even know. What? Look, what explains why an agent does evil?
The agent does evil because he desires it.
And you're saying they choose their desire?
Yes, the desire doesn't come from anything else but the individual itself.
What explains their desire choice?
It derives from the individual. There's no prior that gives this
So you're just
individual
You're just
desire.
individual.
you're just saying it's a brute contingent fact what people desire, right? But then I'm just not understanding why you would assume that people would not brutally contingently desire evil after the redemption.
But I just gave you an explanation that it has happened. People have been in the presence of God.
So then you do
and brutally
expect.
has.
So then you do expect, right? Then you would expect that after the redemption, sin and evil would continue, right?
No, because so when somebody's
How
put to the
come?
test, right?
Look,
When
just
somebody
think of
put-
it as
when
like
somebody-
flipping a coin, right? Think of it as
When
like flipping
somebody-
a coin, right?
when
Imagine
somebody's
there's
put
a
to the
random.
test-
Look, imagine there's a perfectly indeterministic coin, right? Now, whatever, there's some set of tests that the coins go through, right? Maybe they need to come up heads in a row, and then the coins get put in some new room, right? Or in some new box or something like that, right? Now, what I'm asking is, if you just think it's purely random, right, what people desire, right, why is it that you don't think that after a coin has flipped heads 10 times in a row, right, and has been placed in this new box, that it's not going to come up tails, that every time it's flipped in the future, in an infinite future, it's always going to come up heads? Because that's basically what you're saying, right? Human beings exist in an infinite future in heaven after the redemption, right? And nothing explains why they do good or evil, right? But you're saying your expectation is that they will always do good, right? Why would you have an expectation like that if it's indeterministic?
because they have become one with the nature of God, right? So they bought into the whole narrative of God.
You've already
And
said that people
they accepted that this is what
within
they
the-
want. So
Yeah,
therefore,
but the point is, you don't think that people wanting something precludes them changing their mind.
yeah, it's logically possible that people can change their mind. I don't
No,
think
but
that's
I
how
don't
to
understand
defeat
why you don't have the expectation that they would.
it. Because they went through a very difficult test, right?
Look,
They went through a very difficult test.
your view is that what explains.
So hold on, they went through a very difficult test that has all these trials on them, right? And they were able to overcome this, despite of all this, right? They were able to prove themselves. They pretty much proved that this is what they want, despite of all the shit that they went through. This is what they desired, and it's evidence, right? Because they were able to hold their faith. They were able to be obedient. They were able to pass the test. So it's evident that this is what they desire.
I'm just not seeing this analogy with.
If
the
you want to
coin.
say something like, hey, you know what, in the future they might change, it's really irrelevant to me, right? I'm just saying this test, they passed it, and this is what they showed.
Yeah, but
that they desired.
you think that desires are just some random event that occurs in human minds, right?
I'm not saying it's wrong. Well, I'm saying it's indeterminate. It's determined by the individual. That's what I'm saying.
No, determined by the individual is consistent. The individual can be the same way, right, at time t1 prior to choosing A as they are to choosing B. So it's no fact about the individual that explains why they choose A rather than B.
So you think, maybe this is where you think that I'm saying that these desires are just random at every moment in time. They just, 1 second they're this, another second they're this. This is what you're trying to see. This is what you're trying
Do
to
you
say
believe
that
that they're explained by something, the desires?
No, I think there's a sense of influence in the desires, but ultimately the
You're
source
just changing the probability distribution. You're just saying that it's
Correct.
like 80 and 20, right? But I don't see
Yeah.
where you're getting 100 from.
But I never said it was 100, right?
But that means that
there
in
is no
an infinite
determinate
but
factor
look,
that always determines what the individual
yeah, but look,
chooses.
that means that in an infinite number of trials, you're going to expect that 20% of the time they're going to do evil.
Why would that play out that way? No, because let's say that 80% of it has to do with influences around them, and then there's the 20% of it that's all purely mental that derives from the individual, nowhere else. I don't see how that. There's no issue with that. There's no issue with what you're trying to bring up. Yeah,
Look,
it's not.
if
I'm not arguing.
there's some property of mind in virtue of which there's no expectation, right, that they would ever sin again, why didn't God create people with those properties of mind?
Again, right? You're talking about this compatibilist view that I don't hold, right? I'm saying that the individual ultimately has the last say. In the individual, God doesn't put these.
When you say the individual has the last say, all you're saying is there's no explanation. I don't know why you're putting it that way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
So there's no explanation for why an agent does A rather than B.
Other than the individual chooses it, that's it. But yeah,
Other
there's
than
no
that
prior.
the individual
There's no
chooses
prior.
it, we're asking why it chooses it. The answer
There's no
can't be. The answer can't be because it chooses it. So that's not. You're not saying anything when you say other than that the individual chooses it. I'm asking why
There's
the
no
agent
prior.
chooses.
It's
Yeah,
brute.
I'm asking
There's
why
no
the
prior.
agent chooses it, and the answer is for no reason whatsoever. That's your view.
No, there's no prior that caused whatever you were trying to say.
Sorry. The agent has a choice between A or B, right? Presumably he has reasons to do A and he has reasons to do B, right? Now what explains why he does A rather than B at a given world?
It would be
Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing explains it on
it would
your
be an
view.
uncaused cause. It would be an uncaused cause from the
An
derived from the
uncaused
individual.
cause means nothing. Nothing explains it.
Yeah, it's brute from the individual. Correct.
We agree. It has no explanation. It has no explanation.
It's brute. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a brute contingent fact. Right. So what I'm
Yes.
trying to understand is why, right, when in an infinite future where an agent is given an infinite number of choices between A and B, you would have the expectation, right, that they would always choose A. If, in fact, it's a brutally contingent fact that they choose A rather than B. Why would you have that expectation?
Can't hear you, man.
What? Sorry. I'm asking if there was an infinite future with an infinite number of trials, right? With an infinite number of choices that some agent is facing, right? An agent is going to have an infinite number of choices between A and B in heaven after the redemption, right? If, in fact, it's a brute contingent fact why he does A rather than B, why would you have the expectation that he will always do A?
Because I'll help you understand what I'm saying. So the initial choice is brute. After that, we do see some form of influence that's being played out, right?
You say influence. Is that influence from their character?
Yeah, so it's a more like
right.
a
Okay, so that's a property of them. So God can create them with that character, right?
So the individual is discovering themselves, right? As soon as the initial choice is made, which the initial choice
the individual acquires some knowledge, right?
Yeah.
The individual acquires some knowledge which influences his future behavior, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so why doesn't God just create them with that knowledge?
Because I remember we talked about it being a bruteness, a brute. The nature of the individual is brute. It's
Yeah,
not
we understand
created
it's brute,
specifically.
but God can make that in the agent such that they always freely choose the good.
No,
Why make them
brute,
with brute
brute means that
qualities?
God doesn't create it. Brute means that it wasn't created by anything. It was brute.
No. You're saying that their acquisition of this character, you're saying the acquisition of this character is a brute fact, right? But that doesn't rule out that God has the power to create beings that have that character.
So you're saying, yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that God can create people to do exactly what He wants them to do, right? Like
No,
He can
what I'm saying is
manipulate the individual.
No,
so
what
they
I'm
always
saying
choose
is
right?
you're saying there's a difference between the people who are expected to do A rather than B, right? And the people who are not expected to do A rather than B. And the difference is that the people who are expected to do A rather than B have acquired some property of their character or mind, right, which disposes them to more likely do A rather than B, right? And I'm just asking what logically rules out God producing beings like that?
Yeah, I guess God would be able to produce that, but that's not His desire. He wants people to. He doesn't want to program people to do what He wants them to do. So Him giving these properties that you're talking about, it's pretty much. I wouldn't consider it a free will choice. It's something that God would be programming in the individual. So it wouldn't be truly free will. It would just be programming by God.
So you're saying that all it is to have free will is that the fact that you are disposed to do good rather than bad is that it was acquired in a brutally contingent way, that disposition.
Yeah, nobody had any say in it. It was freely. It was.
How does God have free will?
Again, I would say that God's nature is brute too. I don't think any priors explain God's nature.
It's not a contingent being, presumably, right?
Exactly correct. Yeah. Nothing explains
so then you're
his
saying,
nature.
if you're saying it's necessary, then you're just saying that he has free will in a different sense from human beings.
No, I think it would be the same free will that I'm talking about between God and individuals.
How is it the same if in one it's contingent, the other it's necessary?
Who's contingent? I said both of them are brute.
No, but I was asking whether
What?
one was brutally contingent and one was necessary.
Sorry, yeah, I don't argue necessity or contingency. I just.
So you don't think God is a necessary being?
I don't argue necessity, no.
Okay, so it's just sort of like happenstance that God has this nature.
Correct.
Okay, but I guess it doesn't really make any difference, this free will stuff, because it's just going to contradict the idea of a good being to say that he permits beings to do evil for the sake of their freedom, because that's just going to mean that he's indifferent to the evil.
Oh yeah, so we're moving past the free will part and talk about why he doesn't stop it after, even if they're free to choose, why doesn't interject and stop all?
Yeah,
Legal. That's the next conversation.
that's right.
Yeah. So the reason why he does that. Yeah, hold on. Give me 1 second. Yeah. So the reason why he does this is because this life is a test. So this life isn't supposed to be like the end goal, right? So he's okay with letting this all play out in order for him to be able to know which individuals desire to be in heaven and which individuals don't desire to be in heaven. So
Yeah, but I don't think it matters what the explanation is, right? Because you're just saying
it does, though.
Well, no, because the point is that just means that he's indifferent to what occurs.
No, he can still notice that suffering causes pain, and he feels sorrow for it, but he thinks
No, I'm not talking about that.
There's a reason for it, right?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm asking whether he thinks that the agent doing something evil is undesirable.
Yeah, sure. Evil is not desired for God. He doesn't like when people do evil.
Yeah,
things.
so the point is, right, what I'm understanding evil to be, right, is that which, if you have a desire that, if you're a good being, right, it is what you will desire not occur, right, if you can prevent it or arrest it, right?
Okay, is there a question?
Yeah, so the point is, if it's the case that he has the capacity to stop it and desires that it not take place, right, he can do so, right? In fact, he would be rationally required to do so. So what you're saying is that he thinks that there's some other thing, right, which is better than that evil occurring, right? Now, the way I understand that is, there are cases like this, right, which are called like pro tanto, where we talk about pro tanto evils, right? So take an example like a vaccine, right? In the case of a vaccine, it might be that it causes like pain to a child, right? And you might think that causing pain is a bad-making feature of the vaccine, but you might think that the disease-preventing property of the administration of the shot is a good-making feature, and that the good outweighs the bad, right? Well, I take it that the idea here is that there's some contingent connection between the good-making feature and the bad-making feature, such that in circumstances where you could have the good without the bad, you'd be rationally required to prefer the one without the other, right?
Okay.
And so the point is that if it's a contingent connection, right, then it's not going to be something that God is bound to, because God can God is only bound by logical restrictions, right? He's not actually bound by things like limitations on technology or limitations on his knowledge or natural laws or any type of natural fact, right, that would constrain his ability to choose, right? So what I'm saying is that if there is no normative demand that God act to stop it, right, because he can only get what he wants by having it obtain, right, then that just means he doesn't think it's undesirable. Because to think it's undesirable, right, is to think that in a world where you could have the one without the other, right? That's the action that he would be moved to act to have the one without the other. But it sounds like you're saying there is no such world like that, where God would be moved to act to have the one without the other, right? And so in that case, I don't see how you could say it's undesirable by God's lights.
I see what you're arguing, yeah. But what I'm saying is that in no way, or no shape, in no way is sin necessary in God's view. Like, we don't have to sin. The Holocaust did not
So
have
the question
to
is, when you say it's undesirable, does that potentially rationalize some action for God to eliminate or prevent that evil?
So there's two different conversations going on right here, right? One of them is like that God thinks that it's desirable. It's not desirable. He can have this. He can be have a negative view on sin, right? He can say sin is something that I don't want. But yes, it is. And then on the other hand, you're arguing, why didn't he stop it then, right?
I'm asking in virtue of what can we say that he doesn't want it if it doesn't potentially rationalize an action?
Yeah, as long as you can see that sin isn't something that needs to happen, then we can move to the next conversation of why doesn't he stop it.
I'm just asking whether it potentially rationalizes an action for God to stop it.
Yeah, so you're asking why he doesn't stop it, right? I gave you the
No,
the
I'm
answer,
asking
right?
if it potentially rationalizes an action for him to stop it.
No, because God can have competing desires. He can have competing desires. This is what we see play out, right?
But what's
He
the
doesn't
answer to the
like sin.
question?
He doesn't like sin, but he does have the desire to build this place.
But I'm not
called
asking you
heaven,
that. I'm not
where
asking you
people
any of that.
freely choose all
I'm not
this
asking you any of that. I'm asking you if it potentially rationalizes an action to prevent or eliminate it.
No, it wouldn't, because he has a competing desire that prevents him from doing that.
In every possible world?
Yeah, in every possible world.
Right, but then I don't think you can attribute the desire there.
Why not?
Just to say that he has the desire is that it potentially rationalizes an action. If it potentially rationalizes an action, that means there is a possible world where he acts on that desire.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I'm in the middle of work.
It's all right, that's fine. Yeah, I'm saying, look, what it is to have a desire, right, is to have a mental state that potentially rationalizes an action to fulfill it, right? And if it potentially rationalizes an action to fulfill it, then that means there is a possible world where he does so. So I think a way to think about what the problem here is, right, is that the view of goodness that you're attributing to God is indistinguishable from moral indifference, right? Because, see, we believe, presumably, we do think that interference with free will is justified under many circumstances, right? Like, God doesn't stop, I don't know, putatively horrible evils, right, from obtaining all the time, right? Like, I don't know, whatever you think is really bad, Auschwitz or Hiroshima or American slavery or whatever, right? But we normally wouldn't say, presumably, that we shouldn't act to stop or prevent those things because it would be interfering with their free will, right? So if you saw somebody about to have sexual relations with a child. Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't hear anything that I said.
I did hear. I've been listening on the background.
Okay, yeah. So if we saw somebody about to forcibly have sexual relations with a child or something, right, and you thought that was a bad thing, then you wouldn't say, presumably you wouldn't say, well, I'm not going to stop this or prevent this from happening because it would be interfering with the free will, right? So what I'm saying is you can sometimes say, it's better not to intervene because some worse outcome is going to happen, right? But then you're going to be back. Then you're going to be back up against the problem that came up with the vaccine, right? Because then it's just going to be the case that God is not in that position, right? Because it's not going to be a constraint for him, since the only constraints for him are logical ones, right? And so, in fact, if you didn't act in that circumstance, we would just say you were an indifferent being. Right.
Yeah. So I'll respond to it. Okay. So the reason why God doesn't intervene, there's a difference
I'm not
between
asking
us
you
and
that,
God, right?
but I'm not asking you what the reason
All
is.
right. Make a very precise question then, because you've been
Well,
talking about
you
some
already
kind of.
answered the question, right? You said that it doesn't potentially rationalize an action, right? That's what you said, right?
Correct. Yeah, because God has
Yeah, but then what
competing
I'm saying
desires,
is, but then I'm saying, well, no, because my point is that what I'm saying is that to attribute a desire, right, is to attribute a state of mind that potentially rationalizes an action. And what it means to potentially rationalize an action to fulfill a desire is that there's a possible world, right, in which one does so act, right? And what you're saying is there is no such possible world, right? And that contradicts the idea that it is a potential.
right? But we have to. Why don't you want to get into why he doesn't act though? That's what I've been trying to get into.
It's not going to make any difference.
It does make a difference though.
No, because you're not understanding the problem, right? I'm saying that to say that God thinks it's undesirable is to think that in a circumstance where he could have the one without the other, right? He would act to
But I would
select the
reject.
one without the other, right?
I would reject
But
that
you're
he can
saying
have
there is
one
no
without
such
the other.
circumstance.
I would reject that.
Right,
I don't
that's
think
what
that he can have one
Yeah,
without the
so
other.
then you're saying the connection is a necessary one. And all I'm saying is, if the connection is necessary, it doesn't make sense to say that God thinks it's undesirable, because that would be like God desiring that triangles have three sides but don't have angles that sum to 180 degrees, right? That wouldn't make any sense.
Oh, I see what you're trying to do. I see what you're trying to do. You're saying that because God doesn't stop it, then it's just saying that He desires it to happen somehow, right?
That's right, yeah.
It's just okay, yeah, yeah. So I don't.
Either
See,
that or
this is
he's
where
indifferent. Either that or he's indifferent. He could be indifferent, right? But the point is, then that would just contradict the properties of him being good and all perfectly good and all powerful. Because a perfectly good being is not an indifferent one, right? And a good being which is to say a being that's not indifferent, that doesn't so act, right, is just going to be one who lacks the power to do so, right? But neither of those are going to apply in God's case, right?
Yeah, and I get what you're saying, but I don't think I can. Just saying that he's indifferent, I don't think either one of them fit, right? He's not indifferent. He obviously has made it clear that he doesn't want us to sin. Sin is nothing that we need to do.
Look. You're saying it's a necessary connection,
well,
right?
Let me finish my sentence. Let's pretend that you're born, right, and you go into heaven and you committed zero sins. God's not going to be mad at you and say, hey, man, you have to go back there. You have to commit at least one sin. Like, he doesn't do that. Like, he doesn't desire.
Is it a necessary connection or not?
Sin isn't necessary for us to commit. We don't.
Okay, so then you're retracting what you said before, where you said it's not possible for him to have the one without the other. That's what you said before. So you're changing, right? Let's get clear.
I'm not changing. I'm just
sorry. Is it possible or not?
Making it clear that it's not something that God requires us to do.
Look, I'm just going to go through this again, right? I'm saying that to attribute a desire, right, in the sense that I mean here, the normative sense, right, is to attribute a state of mind that potentially rationalizes an action to fulfill it, right? So the question then is, if you are attributing so when I say potentially, that means there's a possible world where he acts on that desire, right? There's a possible world, right? There's a world that God exists at where God acts on that desire, right? Now,
all right, sorry. So the desire that you're talking about is the desire for him to
have the one without the other.
So what's the one without the other? Break that down for me.
There's some good making feature that he's aiming at, and there's some bad making feature that accompanies it.
So
saying the bad making feature is undesirable.
Okay, just give a one word answer. What's the two things that you're saying he can't have?
You tell me. You're saying there's this bad thing that obtains. God thinks it's undesirable, but it accompanies some good thing that God thinks is desirable, right? So I'm asking you, can he have the one without the other?
So you're saying, can he have sin? Can he have heaven without sin?
Whatever it is you think God is aiming at, and whatever it is you think that God doesn't intervene to stop because it would prevent him from realizing that aim.
So in order for God to be able to tell the difference between which individual is willing to follow his commandments and which individual isn't willing to follow his commandments, yeah, it is necessary for that individual to play out his free will. So I don't see any way around it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that God wants this individual to to be bad or cause suffering or sin.
Doesn't matter if he wants them to be bad or not. My point is he's just indifferent to it.
I don't think he's indifferent. I think he's very.
Well, if he's not indifferent, then it
He's
would
invested in
potentially
it.
rationalize an action.
Yeah,
right?
there was an action. There was an atonement, right? The atonement would be the action.
Not talking about that. I'm talking about an action to realize the one without the other.
But that would be the action that would justify that would pretty much argue that God is not indifferent, right? That is the action that would.
I'm saying that what makes a being indifferent, right, is that when he's given a choice between a course of action where he can have the one without the other, right, it makes no difference to him which one obtains, right? He's not rationally compelled to choose the one without the other, right?
But
you're saying he isn't rationally compelled to choose the one without the other.
But how can he assign heaven or hell if the individual doesn't take any actions?
Now it sounds like you're saying it's necessary.
Yes, it's not necessary in the sense that he requires us to do it. It's just necessary in the sense that it's what's expected when you give individual free will.
You understand, right?
There's a difference between expected and
you understand,
necessary, right?
You understand, right, that if you think something is bad, right, the fact that intervening to stop it interferes with somebody's free will, right, is not necessarily in itself enough of a reason to prevent you from acting, right, to stop it.
Okay, go on.
Right. So what I'm saying is, okay, so now you say, okay, well, if I were to act under this circumstance, if I were to act in this circumstance to prevent this evil by interfering with somebody's free will, right, are there considerations that outweigh that, right? And so if there are considerations that outweigh that, you're not going to intervene, right? Now, to say that it's bad is to say that it's undesirable is just to say that could you intervene without causing that outcome? Could you intervene without causing that bad consequence, right? You'd be rationally required to do so. That's what it means to think that it's bad in this robust normative sense, right? And what I'm saying is that means there's a circumstance in which you would select the action that is good without the accompanying bad-making feature, right? But if there is no such world where you have the one without the other, that gives you a choice, right? If there is no such world where you're presented with such a choice and you can have the one without the other, right? If that's not a possible world, then it doesn't make sense to say that one thinks it's a bad-making feature because it will then be a necessary feature, right? At every possible world where that good is aimed at, it will be accompanied by that other feature that we were construing as bad, right?
Look, if all you're arguing is that, you know what, individuals choosing hell or heaven is a good thing, I'll concede, yeah. If somebody wants to choose to reject God and God is disrespecting their desires, I think it would be ultimately good. It would be good for God to respect people's choices. But if you want to argue that sin is somehow good, I would just reject that premise, right?
I'm not saying that it's good. I'm saying that it's not actually bad. Right, there's actually there's three options, right? The options are, what I'm understanding good to be is what ought to be done, right? What I'm understanding bad to be is what's ought not be done, what's impermissible, which is to say that every agent well,
if you're arguing, hey, it's good because it gives God the ability to give the individual what they desire, then I would concede, yeah. If God allows free will, in order for him to be able to weed out the good from the bad, then yeah, it would be good, right? He's allowing the individual to choose. So if that's what you want to argue, yeah, I'll concede to that. There's no issue with that. But I would not ever say that.
The conclusion of the argument is that if God is perfectly good and God is omnipotent, then evil does not exist.
No, evil does exist, and he put forth his plan to be able to weed out the good from the bad, and that's, if you want to argue that it's good that he put forth this plan so he's able to do that, I mean, that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, evil is just something that we can use to create a place where people, like a heaven, right, where people just choose to be good, and that's what God is doing. He brought us here to be able to do this, and I don't see what the argument is. I don't see what we're disagreeing.
Well, I can go through the argument again, right? I'm saying that what I'm saying is for God to think it's evil is for God to think it's undesirable. What I'm saying it is to attribute a desire is to attribute a state of mind that potentially rationalizes an action to fulfill the desire. What I'm saying it is to potentially rationalize an action to fulfill a desire is to say that there's a possible world where God acts on that desire to fulfill that desire. He undertakes an action to fulfill that desire, right? And so then the question is, if there is no such possible world, right, then you can't coherently contribute a desire to God to have X not occur, right, in this robust sense of desire.
Yeah, so God wants people to freely choose, so he wants that to occur.
Warranty with digital.
But there is other evidence
6513
that shows why God does not desire this, right? So the fact that after
I don't care what the reasons are.
No, but you're saying besides him not stopping, you're saying because he doesn't stop it, then somehow that points to him being indifferent or desiring.
Yeah,
this,
because
right?
I'm saying what distinguishes an indifferent being from a being that's not indifferent is that a being that's not indifferent is moved to act where he can.
He is going to act, right? When judgment comes, he is going to act.
I'm not talking about when judgment comes, right? Because when
Why
judgment
not,
comes, the reason is because God has a choice to have the thing obtain, right, or not, right? Now, if you're just saying there's going to be a judgment, if you're saying there's going to be a judgment if the thing obtains, right, and that's the option that he selects, right, you're just saying that he thinks it's more desirable to have the thing obtain and then have a judgment, right, than not have the thing obtain at all, right?
I conceded. I said it is desirable for God for this to play out because his overall
but then that
plan,
just means that's a better world.
His overall plan, though, yes, this is what he desires because his overall plan is for him to create a heaven what doesn't exist.
Can he have the event obtain? Sorry, can he prevent the event from obtaining and get a world as good as the one where he lets it obtain, and then have the judgment?
So you're saying, can he have the judgment if free will isn't present? Is that your question?
No. The question is, God has a choice, right? I'm asking if God has a choice. Does he have a choice between having the world where he does not let the bad thing obtain, right, and letting the bad thing obtain and then having a judgment?
So, okay, let me rephrase your question, make sure I understood. You're asking if God can create a world where he doesn't let the bad thing obtain and still have the judgment?
No, I'm saying, look, he has a choice between letting the bad thing occur, right, not letting the bad thing occur. He has a choice between one, letting the bad thing occur, or two, he has a choice between one, not letting the bad thing occur, and two, letting the bad thing occur, and then delivering a judgment, right? I'm asking, right, if he can have the good that he's aiming at, right, or something as good, without letting the bad thing occur.
How's that possible? How can God punish somebody for something that didn't occur?
Look, whatever good he's aiming at some good, right? Can he have that good without intervening to prevent the bad thing from a...
That's what I don't think it's possible.
Right, well then if it's not possible, then it doesn't make sense to say that God thinks it's undesirable. Because what is undesirable is what potentially rationalizes an action, right, to prevent it from coming into being or obtaining, continuing, or whatever, right? To basically to eliminate it, right? It potentially rationalizes an action to eliminate it. But you're saying it's not possible for God to act.
Yeah, I conceded to that, right? I said that God desires.
Yeah, but then I'm just saying
people
that
to freely choose between good and evil.
Yeah, but then what I'm saying
desire.
is, if what you're saying is undesirable doesn't potentially rationalize an action to fulfill it, then you're not correctly attributing a desire in the robust sense.
No, hold on. You're just conflating. You're just mixing up what I'm saying, right? God can very well have desire that to the individual have the ability to choose between good and evil. That's his desire. Yes, that's something that he wants it to play out. And then at the same time, say at the end, I will make judgment, and then I'll prove, like I'll give evidence. Because because he has revealed that sin is not something that should be chosen, right? But he's going to let it play out so he's able to divide the good from the bad. So in the end, the evidence that he is not indifferent would be his judgment.
I'm not asking for the evidence. I'm asking whether it potentially rationalizes an action to prevent it.
No, because he's got competing desires, right? His desire is the desire that just overwhelms everything else.
I'm saying that in the robust normative sense, to attribute a desire, right, is to attribute a state of mind that in some possible world rationalizes an action to fulfill it. Is there a possible world where God acts to fulfill that desire? The desire in question is that some action undertaken by a creature, right, not obtain, right? He would prefer that they not do this thing, right? He'd prefer that the person not act to whatever, have unconsensual sexual relations with a child.
God is just giving a prescriptive, right? He's saying, hey, do this because this
What's the
brings
answer
you
to
the
the
ultimate
question?
happiness.
What's the answer to the question?
I think I've answered you multiple times, and you're just restating the question over and over, and I've answered it multiple times.
Is it the case that that desire potentially rationalizes an action?
No, because it doesn't.
Okay, great. Let's just stop at the no. Right. If it doesn't potentially rationalize an action, and what it is to have a desire is to have a state of mind that potentially rationalizes an action to fulfill it, right? Then there's a contradiction there.
Could there be?
Yeah, there can be competing desires. That means that where.
So could that be an explanation why this isn't actualized?
No.
Why not?
Because to say that there are competing desires, right, is to say that in possible worlds where the other desire, right, where God doesn't have that other desire, he will then act, and there's no other competing desire, he will then act on this desire.
Okay. So you're saying that there's a possible world where, I'm actually lost what you're actually arguing. So you're saying that there's a possible world where God is able to act and get both of the desires met?
Let's go back to the vaccine case, right? When we say that
just answer the question I asked first. Is that what you're saying? That there's a possible world where God gets both of his desires met?
There's a possible. Well, to say that he has a desire is to say that there's a possible world where the desire is met.
That's what you're saying, right? There's a possible world where both of the desires are met.
Well, where he acts, he has to be able to act to fulfill it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That there's no possible world where that is the case.
I'm saying that what it is to attribute a desire is to say there's a possible world where the agent acts to fulfill it.
Okay, go on.
So this desire that God has, that this thing not obtain, is there a possible world where he acts to prevent it from obtaining?
No, there is no possible world where he acts.
Right. So then I'm just saying that it can't be the case that it can't be the case that in the robust sense it's undesirable to God. That's all that I'm saying.
Yeah. So I thought I conceded to that. I thought I said that God desires.
Look, if you're conceding that nothing that obtains is undesirable to God, then we don't have a dispute. That's all I'm concerned to get you to concede.
The only thing I'm arguing, I'm conceding to that. But the only thing I'm arguing is that there is a distinction between good and evil with God, right?
There might be some non-normative sense of good and evil that you're using. I don't care about that.
But that's all I'm concerned.
All I'm concerned about is whether evil in the robust normative sense obtains if God is good in the robust normative sense and God is all-powerful. And if you're conceding that in that sense of evil, right, and in that sense of good, right, there's no evil, there's nothing undesirable to God in the robust sense that ever obtains, then we don't have a dispute.
No, I think you're doing a little bit of wordplay. I think that there is evil and good, and we can see it. The fact that God allows
just
it
not
doesn't somehow make. I am tracking. I'm just saying he's switching words and just being disingenuous.
What words did he switch?
Yeah, so God allowing something to happen doesn't mean that he's indifferent or that it's somehow good.
Look,
you're indifferent if you would not in any circumstance act, right? Because look, you can say, look, we wouldn't say the person who administers the vaccine is indifferent to the pain that it causes, right? Because we would say, because if that person was presented with some special type of device that allowed him to administer the vaccine without causing pain, right? And he in that circumstance would be moved to prefer to administer the shot in the painless way, that rather than in the painful way, we would say that's not an indifferent being.
Here, right? I'll give you an example, right? let's say that I desire my daughter to drive, right? And there's a possibility that my daughter is going to get in a car accident. Me acknowledging that possibility, and then it doesn't mean that if she does get into a car accident, somehow I feel that car accident was a good thing, right? It's a possibility.
To say that you think it's an undesirable thing, to say that it's an undesirable thing is just to say
it is an undesirable thing.
Yeah, to say that in the robust sense means that could you act in such a way, right, to realize the good that you're aiming at without that accident obtaining, you would do so, right? That in those cases,
that's what I'm saying. God wouldn't, like, in order for me to let my daughter freely roam and drive, then it wouldn't, me like being there, like stopping all the cars from like, it's just not logical, right? It wouldn't fit to the.
If you're saying it's logically necessary, if you're saying it's logically necessary,
it doesn't fit for me to desire for her to freely have this, for her to have this freedom to drive and experience and
you
explore the world.
You understand that in the vaccine case, to say that the pain is a bad making feature is to say that it potentially rationalizes an action, right?
I'm actually no, I don't know.
Okay, so I need to explain that to you, right? What I'm saying is, if you want to say that the pain that accompanies administering a shot that injects a disease-preventing agent into a child's body, right? If you want to say that pain is a bad-making feature, which is to say that it's undesirable, right? At least for any agent that desires good things, right? Then what that means to say that it's a bad-making feature is what it means to say that that's undesirable and therefore a bad-making feature is to say that it potentially rationalizes an action to have the good
I think what you're arguing, I think what we're getting lost is you're arguing that, but I think what you're arguing is that God can give this shot and then also get rid of the pain, right? He's able to do both. He's able to give this vaccine, and he's able to also get rid of the pain. And I thought we both agreed that I said that's not possible. It's not possible. It's out of God's hand.
I'm saying it doesn't make sense for. Yeah, I'm saying it doesn't. I'm saying it doesn't make sense to desire things that are logically impossible.
You're lagging. We can't understand you.
You're lagging, Russell. Say that again.
Oh, can you hear me now? I'll get better right now. Let me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Trey, can you hear me? Yeah, there's nothing logical to have.
Sorry, I have to stop.
Desires.
I have to step away for a few minutes.
But yeah, there's nothing logical for having passive desires of something, right? And knowing that you have limited control over the outcome, but still have a desire for something to play out. Nothing logical with that.
Again, I'm saying that to say that it's undesirable in the robust normative sense is just to say there's a possible world where you can act to realize it.
We just went over this, right? The fact that he has competing desires, that's why he doesn't actualize them. And I think we're just going in circles now. The fact that God has competing desires,
is there a possible
this is the reason why he doesn't.
One without the other. Because what I'm saying is, right, to say that the pain is a bad-making feature is that in the possible world, right, where you can administer the shot without the pain, right, that's what you would do, given that you're a good, not an indifferent or bad person, right? And so I'm saying, is there a possible world where God can aim at whatever the good in question is, right, can act to realize the aim, which is whatever good is in question, without the accompanying putatively bad-making feature? Is there a world where he can do that?
Well, if you're asking if he can obtain this,
if there is no such possible world, right, then it doesn't make sense to attribute the desire. That's all that I'm saying. I'll be back in a
Hey, did Jack take off or what?
He said he had to
Yeah, you
step
say
away.
you'll be back.
Then do you want to continue the conversation, Monkey Boy, or somebody else? Or else
Yeah, I'd be
I'll-
glad to. I mean, I was in class most of the time, so I wasn't even paying much attention. I forgot where. I mean, maybe the thing is, I don't want to walk back the entire like dialectic, but
Yeah, pretty much. I can see that God desires this plan to play out, right? He desires people to choose between good and evil. So if it's a good thing that people make it clear to
choosing
God.
evil is a good thing.
No. Let me listen to what I'm saying. It's a good thing for people to let God
But is
know
choosing
their
evil a good
desires.
thing?
It's not something that would get you to be with God. No, so it wouldn't be something that God would. It's choosing. Yeah, freedom is a good thing. Yeah, having freedom to choose
Oh,
is a
so,
good thing.
okay. So doing evil actions is a good thing, or sinning is a good thing. So
No. You're confusing. The act itself isn't good, but the freedom to choose is good.
what do you take the freedom of choice to mean here?
So the ability to choose what one desires is a good thing.
And what is that supposed to mean?
So like if God is giving a prescriptive command, right? He's saying, hey, do this, but you make it known to God that it's your choice not to abide by his
What do you mean by choose your desires?
Well, let me reword it, to make your desires known to God.
What? All you mean by
I would
free will
reword
is
it,
making
yeah.
your desires known to God?
Correct, yes.
So, but doesn't God already know your desires?
No, he doesn't.
Okay, so you just don't take the view God's all-knowing?
Yeah, I hold to an open theist view.
Okay, and wait, so then how, if all you mean by good is apparently the ability to make known your desires to God. Wait,
Yeah, that's the good thing right there.
so then bad is just not communicating your desires to God?
No, I mean, we can talk about different things. If you're talking about bad in the sense of God doesn't respect your desires and he forces you in a place where you don't want to be, that would be bad, right? Let's say that
Okay,
I tell,
look.
hey man, I wanna be in hell, right? And God's like, no, I'm gonna put you in heaven. And that would be bad because
Yeah.
God is not respecting your desires.
I'm not, okay, let's just, because, oh my God, you use like language really weird. Okay, so we're going to understand good in the normative sense where, you know, you have like these moral duties. So when something's good, it's an action you ought to do. Now, do you take it, now, you know, let's say the Holocaust, ought you not do that? You ought not do the Holocaust, right?
So now when we're talking about sin and action, there is prescriptive, right? Like this, the Holocaust
Yes
is
or
going
no?
to cost. You ought not do it.
You
Yeah.
ought not. Okay.
You ought
so
not do
then, if it ought not be done, why does God not eliminate or impermit the action?
Because he's got a plan for why this is necessary to play out.
Oh wait, but then that means it's good.
Yeah, the free will
Wait,
part
can
of it
God's
is
plan
good.
be fulfilled? Wait, can God's plan be fulfilled without that action being undertook?
No, I think.
Okay, so then that action
necessary.
is good. Wait, so then that action
the
isn't
free
bad.
will. No, I thought I was pretty clear at the beginning, right?
Wait,
The
okay, let's
action
just
of
clarify
allowing the
again.
individual to pick
Is the
is
event
good.
of the Holocaust
But the action can
necessary
still be
for God
bad.
to fulfill His plan?
Explain what you mean by necessary.
Could He fulfill His plan without it?
Are you asking if? Let me ask you a question. Are you asking if the Holocaust was something that had to happen?
I don't know. It's unclear. Do you think His ultimate plan can be achieved without the event of the Holocaust being done?
Well, I think you're not understanding what's being argued here.
It's
I
just a
think
yes or
you're
a
confused.
no. I'm asking you a
But you're
question.
confused with the question that's being asked. Though you're not asking the right question.
What do you mean? I just asked you a question. I'm not confused about anything. Do you take it that God could achieve His ultimate plan without that event arising?
The Holocaust did not need to happen,
Oh, so it wasn't
But-
necessary for His ultimate
but-
plan, yes?
but there was a
Let's just clarify. It's not necessary for His ultimate plan?
free will is necessary for the ultimate plan.
It's not what I asked you. Just try and answer my questions, not the voices in your head.
I
Now,
don't know
is
what
the
you're even
event of the
asking, though.
Holocaust okay? So then maybe like be honest and just say I wasn't clear what the question is instead of answering something you weren't clear about if you weren't clear
Okay,
what the
I don't
question
understand what
was.
you're asking. I
Okay,
don't
so
understand what you're asking.
yeah, so is the event of the Holocaust necessary for God to achieve His ultimate plan?
Again,
Yes, it's
I don't know what you're
necessary, or
asking.
no, it's necessary.
I don't know what you're asking.
Okay, can God achieve His ultimate plan without the Holocaust arising?
Are you being specific about one event, or are you specific like the Holocaust representing sin?
I don't know. It's unclear, right? I'm using very, very like elementary
Yeah.
language.
I
I'm not
just
even
asked. Yeah.
using philosophical languge. So
I'm
there's an
not. I'm
event
not
that happens in the course
confused
of
by the
time.
wording.
Okay,
I'm
look,
confused by the
God has an
question.
ultimate plan, correct?
Yes, he does. He has a plan.
Okay, and is this event of the Holocaust a necessary event to constitute His ultimate plan, right? Is it a means to an end? Is it
That's what I'm
necessary to
asking you.
achieve the end goal or not?
That's what I'm asking you. Are you being specific about the event itself, the Holocaust, or are you asking about sin?
Yeah, when I ask about the Holocaust, obviously I mean the event I'm using, genius.
So yeah, the Holocaust
Yeah,
was
so I'll
something
ask the
that
question
could
again.
have
Is the
or could
Holocaust
not
a
happen, right?
necessary
It
event to
wasn't
fulfill His plan?
necessary. The Holocaust was
Okay, so
something
it
that
wasn't necessary to meet His ultimate plan.
Yeah, there could have been a world where the Holocaust did not
Okay,
play
so
out.
then why did God? Okay, so then it's the event was not necessary for His ultimate plan, and was not desired by God. So it's impermissible the event obtains.
Wait, do you mind if I interrupt you, Monkey Boy?
Go ahead.
I just want to continue where I was before.
Yeah,
I got
that's
like
fine.
15 minutes. I got 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
hope we can wrap it up in 15 minutes.
Okay. So let's just go back to the vaccine case, right? Now, what I'm saying is that to attribute the pain, the accompanying pain to the vaccine, to say that that's a bad making feature, which is to say that for a being that desires the good, a good being, right, that that's an undesirable thing, right? To say that that's an undesirable thing is to say that it potentially rationalizes an action to aim at the good in question without the accompanying bad making feature, right? Which is to say that when presented with a
You already conceded to this, Jack. I don't know why you're rewording it. Like I already said that there is no possible world where God can obtain what He wants without these things being part of the plan.
I'm just trying to get to what I understand an indifferent being to be, right? An
An
indifferent being.
indifferent being wouldn't atone for the sins of humanity. That's what an indifferent being would be.
I'm saying what I understand an indifferent being to be is one who does not, when presented with the choice, right, does not care which of the two options is selected, right, is happy with either option, right? That's what it means to be morally indifferent in this context, right? He doesn't care. So what distinguishes a good being from an indifferent being is that when presented with such a choice, right, he selects to realize the good without the accompanying bad, right? Now, what I'm saying is to say that it's undesirable, right, is to say that there is some possible circumstance where you could act to fulfill that desire, right? And in the case of the vaccine, such a circumstance is a case where you have a device that can protect children from disease without causing pain, or where maybe there is no disease, or something like that, right? Maybe I could create a world where there is no disease so that people don't need to get painful shots, right? Any choice where I can have the good, which in this case is children being protected from disease, without the accompanying bad-making feature, right?
But that's what we this is what you understood my position. I don't know why you're rewording it again. I said, hey, because of multiple things, right? Because of competing desires, because of free will, this world that you're talking about is not being it will not be able to be actualized.
When you say competing desires, it just seems like you're not tracking, right?
I'm tracking very well. I am tracking. Yes.
Okay, so let's go back to your example. If you're tracking, right? Can God aim at the good in question without the accompanying evil? Is there a possible world where he can aim to realize the good in question without the accompanying evil? Is there such a world?
I haven't been presented with that possible world. No.
I'm just asking if there is such a possible world.
I just answered. I haven't seen one or been given an argument for one. I don't think there is one.
Great. But what I'm saying is, if it's not possible for him to have the one without the other, it doesn't make sense to say that it's undesirable that he have it in the robust sense of desire that I'm talking about. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I understand. I conceded a long time ago that God desires this world where people freely choose what they desire.
I didn't ask whether he desires this world or not. I'm asking if you understand that if there is no possible world where he can have the one without the other, the good without fucking bad. It doesn't make sense to say, right, that what you're calling the bad is undesirable to God in the robust sense of desire that I'm talking about.
Okay, this is what you're getting mixed up, right? You're confusing when I say he desires a world where people free choose, and then you're saying, hey, what people choose is good, like the evil that they choose. Like you're saying that good or evil, they're all the same. There's no difference between what is being chosen, and that's just nonsense, right? I've been focusing on the system that you set up, the system that allows freely for men to choose what they want. That's a good thing. But what they choose, God can still say, hey, this is good and bad. He can still distinguish between the choices that were made.
When God says that thing is bad, that you're doing, does that potentially rationalize an action for God to prevent or eliminate it?
Again, he's got competing desires. Why he doesn't eliminate it? Why aren't you tracking this?
When you say he has competing desires, that doesn't change anything. That's just going to mean...
It does change it.
Do we agree that what it is to have a desire is for it to potentially rationalize some action to fulfill it?
Yes. If this competing desire did not facilitate the fact that he could stop this, then he would act on it. But because his competing desires don't give credence to this, to him acting upon this, then that's why he doesn't act upon it.
Sorry. So when you say there is a it could rationalize, you're saying there is a possible world where he acts to have the one without the other, right?
No, there isn't a possible world where this plays out.
Great. Well, what did I say before about what it means to say that it potentially rationalizes?
What was the question? What did you ask me?
What did I say before about what it means to say that it potentially rationalizes an action? What did I say before about that?
I don't know. Repeat what you said. I don't know. We've been talking a lot.
What I said multiple times. What I said multiple times to you was that means there is such a possible world where he acts on that desire. There is such a possible world. Now, you just said there is no such possible world, right? And I'm saying that entails that the putative desire does not potentially rationalize an action to fulfill it. And so I'm saying that in the robust normative sense of desire, right, it's a mistake to say that he has such a desire, right? I told you that multiple times.
It's a mistake. Okay. So you're saying it's not right for me to say he has a desire because he can't actualize this set of desires.
Yeah, I'm saying that desire in the robust normative sense is something that potentially rationalizes an action.
So God cannot give prescriptive commandments. Like he can't say, hey, I think you should do this, and have a desire for us to do this. And then at the same time say, hey, acknowledge that even though he gave that prescriptive desire, acknowledge that it's up to the individual to choose.
They're not prescriptive commandments in the robust normative sense. Because a rational agent that issues a robust normative commandment is saying that it desires that an agent does X rather than Y. And to say that he desires X rather than Y is to say that it would potentially rationalize an action, right, on that agent's part to effect that the agent does X rather than Y, where it can do so.
Hold on. So you think, okay, why can it not be a prescriptive desire? Run that back again, because it didn't make any sense. Why it cannot be a prescriptive desire?
What it is to have a prescriptive, to issue a prescriptive command in the robust normative, right, is to have a desire that
Your pause, Jack.
Sorry, that is to say that has a desire that the person being commanded acts in accord with the command, which is to say that what the commander wants, right?
Do you understand what the word prescriptive means?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. Give me the definition. Maybe we're operating under different definitions of prescriptive.
it means what ought to be done.
Oh, no, no. No, it's more like, it's more
that is
like,
what it means.
no, but the way
standard
that I
normative
would use it
sense.
for,
What do you mean?
the way I would bring it up, prescriptive would be something as like, something that is like a descriptive way, right? Like I'm describing what should happen in the sense of like,
You
if you
just
want
said
this,
it's
if you want this,
prescriptive isn't descriptive. What?
hold on, let me clarify. So if I'm making the agent know what it is, what the consequences of each action is gonna entail, right? So I'm saying, hey,
That's not what I'm talking about.
I'm saying, hey, so if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this is gonna happen.
Yeah, that's fine. That's a non-normative. That's a
I
non-normative.
think that you should do this because this will bring you happiness, right?
Non-normative of
Yeah, so that's the way I'm using it. That's why I'm using, like, when God gives us commandments, that's what he's doing.
I'm not talking about non-normative senses of prescription, right? I'm only concerned with the idea that God thinks it's undesirable that an agent do something. Because what I'm understanding a desire to be is something that potentially rationalizes an action to fulfill it, right? And so if it's the case that there's no possible world where the agent acts to fulfill that desire, it's not correct to attribute a desire in this robust normative sense to that agent.
Yeah. I think I don't know where to go from here. I think, yeah, I don't know where to go from here, man. I don't think I agree with the verbiage you're using.
You don't agree with the what?
Agree with the
I agree
verbiage.
with
What
it.
does that mean?
Because I think God can have passive desires. You're saying that that's impossible. That he should not be able to have that.
I don't
That
know.
if he has a desire,
I don't-
then
I
the
don't-
only way he can have a desire is if he's able to. The only way that
Never
God
made
can
a
have a
claim
desire.
about the possibility of God's desires being passive or not. See,
Hold
this
on.
is just you
What he
not
said. What he
tracking.
said though, is that it's illogical for God to have desires if he can't make those desires come into.
Desires in the robust normative sense. That's all that I'm saying.
Correct.
So look, if there's some other sense of desire that you're talking about when you say God thinks it's undesirable, right? That's fine. I don't care anything about that. I'm only concerned with God's robust normative moral desire, right?
Yeah, I think that's where we disagree then.
There's nothing robustly, normatively, morally undesirable about anything that obtains, right? If God is perfectly good in the robust normative sense and he's all powerful.
Yeah, I think that's where we're gonna kind of have a difference of opinion, right? Like the desire part of it.
I don't know what you mean have a difference of opinion. I gave you my
Yeah.
definition of desire.
Yeah. So I have a different view of desires. How God can have desire.
Then you're just equivocating.
I don't understand. You're just equivocating. You're not engaging with Jack's critique. You're using language in a different way.
You're conceding.
Yeah, I am. Is there anything wrong with that? That I have
We're
a
just not.
different view.
We're not using your language.
Yeah, not having a semantic. If we're just having a semantic dispute, I'm not interested in that. If you're just saying, oh, when I say God is good, I just mean God is chocolate, right? I don't care. Right?
Well, it does come down to that semantic disagreement, though. That's what it is. Like just because you don't care about that semantic, that is pretty much what it comes down to.
Yeah, I'm not interested in a semantic disagreement. If you're conceding that, given the way I've set up the terms, right, that there's nothing that is undesirable to God in the robust normative sense of desire that I've set up, right, that ever obtains, then we have no disagreement. We have no substance disagreement. You're conceding the argument.
Yeah, I agreed. I agreed a long time ago. We have a different way of viewing how desires of God and how they play out. You have a very robust normative view of desires of God, and I have a different view of how God's desires should or would play out.
Wait, what are your desires such that they aren't normative? Or how are you using desire such that it isn't like normative?
I'm using the difference between passive desires and just the opposite, right, of passive desire, something that would be.
Look, when you say God passively desires that X not occur, right? That's just consistent with what I understand moral indifference, right? So, like, if God is just like wah wah boo hoo.
Hold on. So you said passive desires is the same as indifference. That's BS, bud.
Well, then you're equivocating.
No, you're just blurring lines on definitions, right? You know exactly what passive desires means. Passive desire is not equal or identical to indifference.
Yeah, what I mean by indifferent, which I've explained multiple times now.
No, that's fine what you mean by indifference, right? But you cannot
Then
say
why
that.
did you say he's lying?
Yeah, because he's using passive desires it's identical to indifference.
Yeah.
Which is it's not the case.
How's that a lie?
What I explained.
It's not true. They're not identical. That is a lie because it's a misuse of the word.
I explained what I meant by indifference, by moral indifference. I explained it.
Well, I gotta go back to work. I don't think you made any way on overcoming what I feel. There's no issue with the problem of evil. We just had a semantic dispute of what words mean, and I just
Didn't
don't
have
see
any semantic dispute.
I didn't see any defeater for the problem of evil. So I didn't see any.
Yeah, I agree. There was no
any
defeater
issue.
presented by you for the problem of evil. You weren't tracking.
No,
care
there
whether
was no
you
defeater for God.
I don't care
in
whether
his
you think. I
plan
don't
and
care.
desires.
Yeah, look, I don't care whether you think there's no defeater or not. I just want you to engage with the argument. And if you're saying that having passive desires in this context,
I'm engaging.
if you
right?
say
gonna
that having,
use
hey, you hear me talking?
definitions.
Do you hear me talking? Am I audible?
Go ahead.
Yeah. If you say that in this context, having passive desires is not tantamount to being an indifferent being, you are just equivocating on what moral indifference means in this context, right? So that's what I want you to engage with.
Oh my God, Russell, you don't look good at all.
No, monkey boy, I don't look good because I'm just pointing out that
Because you're not tracking. You're equivocating.
I am tracking.
And you're
I'm
saying he's
tracking
lying.
100%. I'm tracking. So again,
Really? So if I asked
think-
you to like
Hold on,
walk
so you
back the
think that-
dialectic and then give your diagnostic about like this,
you
like
think that
lying about
passive
definition thing,
desires,
you can do that?
You think passive desires is equivalent to indifferences?
As I've set up the term, yes. In this context, yes.
Holy
And
shit!
I've
Right.
given an
If I go
argument.
under your definitions of word, yeah, that's valid. But under my
Do you
definition
remember
of
what
word,
his
it isn't
definition
I
valid.
don't care about your
Indifference was-
definitions. I
Then
told
why
you
the
that I'm
fuck are
not
we having an
interested.
argument
I'm not
then?
interested in having a semantic dispute.
Then why are we
Right.
arguing? Right? You just want me to accept all your
What do you mean, why is
definitions and
he
be like,
arguing?
you just want me to accept your definitions and not question the definitions you're putting
What do you
forth.
mean accept definitions?
Yeah. Do you understand what definitions means?
What does it mean to accept definitions?
Do you understand what a definition is?
What does it mean to accept definitions?
Do you understand what a definition is?
Of course, shithead. What do you mean by accept definitions?
Yeah. So if I say, hey, whatever definition you put forth, that's the definition I'm going to use, right? I have a disagreement with the definition. So he wants me to accept
When you
the
say-
definition that
what do
he
you mean
put
by
forth. And I'm saying I
disagreement of
don't disagree
definition?
with the definition.
Yeah, what do you mean by disagreement of definition?
So what I said is that passive desires is
What are
not
you doing? Look,
equivalent.
what do you mean by disagreement of a
indifferences.
definition? I'm not
Right?
asking. Look, I'm not asking you
That's
what
just
is
a
the
stupid
example in
question.
the
Like, what do you mean?
conversation.
It's just
Yeah, what do you
idiotic
mean by
question for you
disagreement
saying,
on
what do you mean by
definition?
do you want me to break down the
Your
word
opinion
disagreement?
of
Do you want
you
me to-
thinking it's
do you want me to break down the
idiotic
word?
doesn't matter.
Do you want me to break down the meaning of disagreement and the meaning of definition so you can grasp what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say?
break down what you mean by disagreement.
Disagreement is something that we don't agree on, right? Like something that we have different perspectives or different understanding of. So it wouldn't line up perfectly. It would be.
Do you
it would
mean
be different.
conflicting beliefs? Is that what you mean by disagreement? Conflicting beliefs?
Why can't you use disagreement? Why can't you just use disagreement? Why do you have to?
I'm asking you, is that what you
change
mean
up
by the
verbiage?
expression?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. And do you take it that a definition is a proposition? No, idiot. It's not. It's not a proposition. So you can't have disbeliefs. You can't have
What?
conflicting beliefs. Yeah, you
Are
can't
you
have
stupid? Are
conflicting
you dumb?
beliefs about definition.
Are you stupid?
No, you're not. Look, wait,
You're a
do you
fucking
take
idiot,
it?
dude.
Do you take it a definition
Are you
is a
dumb
proposition?
for this? I'm done. Are you stupid? You think we can't have disagreements on definitions?
No.
Oh fuck! I'm done. Gotta drop. See you guys later.
Go ahead.